Hello there, and welcome to Biology with Charles, where science and curiosity come together to uncover the hidden mechanisms that govern our daily lives. If you've ever wondered why you do the things you do, or how those small actions, repeated over time, shape the person you become, you're in the right place. Tonight we'll dive into a topic that silently guides each of us, often without us even realizing it: habits. Habits are like the invisible hands behind the wheel of your life, steering you on a course you may not always be fully aware of. They work tirelessly, day in and day out, building the framework for how we live. Whether you're aware of them or not, habits dictate your morning routines, your eating choices, how you spend your free time, and even the decisions you make in critical moments. They run the show while we simply go along for the ride, thinking we're the ones in control. Consider for a moment how many decisions you made today without consciously thinking about them. You woke up, brushed your teeth, checked your phone, and probably did many things in the same order and rhythm as the day before. These aren't random choices, they are habits. Patterns your brain has formed over time. Habits are efficient. They allow your brain to focus on new or important tasks while the regular, repetitive ones are handled automatically. But how did these habits form? And why do they sometimes feel like they take over our lives? What if I asked you to think about a habit you'd like to change? Or perhaps one that's gotten out of hand over time? It could be anything: a late-night snack, procrastination, or even a tendency to react a certain way when stressed. How did it start? Why is it so hard to stop? These are questions we'll explore as we examine the science and psychology behind habits, how they form, how they stick, and how we can reshape them when they no longer serve us. Now, take a moment to reflect. What habit, good or bad, do you feel most connected to in your daily life? It could be something as simple as your morning coffee, or something more profound, like your work habits or fitness routine. Think about it for a second. This journey we're about to take will help you understand not just why these habits exist, but how you can build new ones that better serve you, if that's your goal. If you find this exploration into the systems that run our lives intriguing, calming, or even a little eye-opening, I'd love it if you gave this video a like. Maybe even subscribe, so we can continue these calming and thoughtful journeys together. Let's dive in, without rush, into the story of how habits work behind the scenes of our existence, affecting us far more than we often realize. Have you ever found yourself going through the motions of your day, almost as if on autopilot? You get out of bed, brush your teeth, make a cup of coffee, and before you know it, hours have passed. You didn't actively decide each step along the way, yet these actions unfold with little thought, almost like an established routine running on its own. This is the power of the subconscious mind in action, steering your actions and decisions without you having to consciously guide them. The human brain is a remarkable organ, capable of processing vast amounts of information every single day. However, it is not designed to handle everything at the level of conscious thought. To conserve energy and function efficiently, the brain offloads many tasks to the subconscious mind. This allows us to perform repetitive tasks like brushing our teeth or tying our shoes without much effort or awareness. Over time, these actions become ingrained as habits, routine processes that don't require active thinking. But what exactly is happening beneath the surface? How do small, seemingly insignificant actions transform into deeply embedded routines that can shape our entire lives? To understand this, we must look at the brain's neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. Every time you repeat an action, your brain strengthens the neural pathways associated with that behavior. Initially, it may require concentration and effort, but with repetition, the behavior becomes automatic as the brain optimizes its efficiency. This is why it's so easy to keep doing things the way we've always done them, even if they're not ideal. For example, imagine you wake up every morning and immediately check your phone for emails or social media updates. This seemingly harmless action starts as a deliberate choice, but over time, it becomes a habit, something your brain has learned to do without even thinking about it. Your brain associates the morning with the need to check for notifications, and the behavior becomes a part of your subconscious routine. The subconscious mind is not just a passive observer. It actively shapes and guides your behavior in ways that are often beyond your awareness. It filters out unnecessary information and directs your attention to what it deems important. Over time, it forms patterns based on repeated experiences, leading to automatic behaviors that we often overlook. What's even more interesting is that these subconscious habits aren't just restricted to simple tasks. They also influence our emotional responses and reactions to situations. Take, for example, how you react when something goes wrong. If you've developed a habit of reacting with frustration or stress in certain situations, this response can become subconscious. It becomes an automatic part of your reactionary behavior without much thought. However, the subconscious mind is not set in stone. Just as it can form habits over time, it can also unlearn them. The key is understanding the power of repetition. In much the same way that good habits are created by repetition, so too can bad habits be broken by consistent effort. It requires conscious intervention and a willingness to introduce new patterns that override the old ones. This is why it's often so challenging to change habits, especially when they're tied to our emotional or psychological responses. The subconscious mind doesn't easily let go of what it knows, even when the behavior isn't serving us. But with awareness and consistent practice, it is possible to reprogram the subconscious and create new, more productive habits. What's important to note is that habits don't form in isolation. They're influenced by the environment around us, the people we interact with, and the experiences we have. Our subconscious mind takes in all this information and uses it to form behavioral patterns. If you're in an environment that constantly reinforces certain behaviors, it becomes that much harder to break the cycle. For example, if you're surrounded by people who smoke, your subconscious mind may begin to associate social gatherings with smoking, making it harder to resist the urge when you're in those settings. But just as the environment shapes our subconscious patterns, we also have the power to reshape them. This is where intentional habit building comes into play. By consciously choosing to engage in new behaviors and consistently repeating them, you begin to build new neural pathways that can eventually override the old ones. Over time, these new behaviors will become automatic, part of your subconscious routine. The subconscious mind plays a critical role in the way we live our lives. It governs our automatic behaviors, our emotional reactions, and even the way we interpret the world around us. The more we understand its power, the better equipped we are to take control of our habits and reshape them to work in our favour. It's not about fighting against the subconscious, it's about working with it to create the life we want. So, take a moment and think about the habits that currently drive your day. Which ones are serving you well, and which ones might need to be re-examined? The beauty of understanding the power of the subconscious mind is that it allows us to make more informed choices about how we live, helping us craft a future that aligns with our intentions rather than simply following the patterns of the past. In the next part of this exploration, we'll dive into the concept of the habit loop, how it works, and how it can be used to both create new habits and break old ones. Let's continue this journey into the fascinating world of how habits shape our lives and how we can take back control. It's a familiar scenario. You make a New Year's resolution or set a personal goal. This time, you promise yourself you'll stick to it. Whether it's exercising more, cutting out junk food, or reading a book every month, you're determined. You try to summon the strength to break old habits, armed with willpower, the belief that if you just focus enough and push through, you'll emerge victorious. But then, a week or two later, the old patterns creep back in. The cookies call to you. The couch looks comfortable. The book remains untouched. Willpower fades, and you're left wondering where things went wrong. The battle between habits and willpower is something most of us face every day, and it often feels like an unbalanced fight. Willpower, by its nature, is a limited resource. It's what we rely on to override our automatic behaviours, but its power can only stretch so far. On the other hand, habits, once formed, are powerful systems in themselves, running beneath the surface of our conscious awareness, making decisions for us when we're not paying attention. They're efficient, automatic, and hard to beat, especially when willpower is weak. So, why is willpower so limited, and why do habits seem to have so much more staying power? To understand this, let's first break down what willpower is and how it works. Willpower is essentially the mental energy we draw upon to control our impulses, make decisions, and stay on track with our goals. It's the thing that helps you resist the temptation of unhealthy food when you're trying to lose weight, or the force that helps you sit down and work when you'd rather be doing something more enjoyable. But willpower isn't an endless well of strength. Research suggests that it operates much like a muscle. Just as you can tire out your muscles after a workout, you can deplete your willpower after exerting it for an extended period. This is known as ego depletion. When you use willpower to resist a temptation, make difficult decisions, or stick to a plan, you're draining your mental resources. As a result, it becomes harder to summon willpower later, making it more difficult to maintain self-control when you need it most. Think of it like trying to swim against the current. The more you try to fight the flow, the harder it becomes to keep moving forward. Willpower requires constant mental effort. It's taxing, and when it runs out, old habits, those automatic unconscious behaviours, take over. Habits, on the other hand, operate differently. They don't require constant mental effort or energy to maintain. Instead, they're stored in the brain's basal ganglia, a region associated with motor control and the formation of habits. Once a habit is formed, it operates mostly outside of conscious thought. Your brain doesn't need to make decisions about whether to engage in the behaviour because it's been encoded as a routine. Think about something as simple as brushing your teeth. You don't wake up in the morning and consciously remind yourself to brush your teeth or debate whether it's something you should do. It's a deeply ingrained habit. Your body moves through the steps on its own, and the more you repeat the behaviour, the less effort it takes. This is why, despite your best efforts to use willpower, habits often prevail. When faced with a temptation, your brain defaults to the path of least resistance, the automatic, habitual response. It's easier to reach for a snack or hit the snooze button than to exercise restraint. Willpower, no matter how strong it is in the beginning, can only hold up for so long before your subconscious habits take over. Another critical factor in this battle is that habits are often reinforced by rewards. Every time you engage in a habitual behaviour, your brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This creates a positive feedback loop that strengthens the habit over time. For instance, every time you smoke a cigarette, your brain associates the act with a brief moment of relief or pleasure, reinforcing the desire to do it again. Similarly, if you procrastinate and then feel a sense of relief after avoiding a difficult task, that relief acts as a reward, making it more likely you'll procrastinate again the next time. Willpower doesn't have the same reinforcement system. When you force yourself to resist temptation, there's no immediate reward. It's not until you successfully complete your goal or stick to a plan that the sense of accomplishment and pride comes into play. Unfortunately, that delayed gratification doesn't offer the same immediate payoff that a habit can. So, can willpower ever win against habits? Is there any way to tip the scales in favour of our conscious intentions? The answer lies in understanding the relationship between willpower and habits. Willpower is not meant to be the long-term solution. It's a temporary tool that helps you break free from old habits and create new ones. To win the battle, you need to use willpower strategically to establish new, healthier habits that can eventually run on autopilot. This is where the concept of habit stacking comes into play. If you want to establish a new habit, it's helpful to link it to an existing one. For example, if you already have the habit of brushing your teeth every morning, you can stack a new habit of doing a 5-minute stretching routine right after you brush your teeth. By attaching the new habit to an existing one, You're tapping into the power of your established routines, making it easier to integrate the new behavior into your day. Another strategy is to make your new habits as easy as possible to perform. The less effort required to engage in the new behavior, the more likely it is that you'll follow through with it. This can mean preparing your workout clothes the night before or having healthy snacks readily available, so that you don't have to use your willpower to make the right choice when hunger strikes. The key is to build habits in a way that they eventually become as automatic as the behaviors you want to change. With time and repetition, the new habit becomes part of your routine, and you don't need to rely on willpower as much. Your subconscious mind starts to take over, and the positive feedback loop of dopamine helps reinforce the new behavior, making it easier to stick with it in the long term. One last thing to consider is the importance of self-compassion. When you inevitably slip up, as everyone does, it's essential to avoid the trap of self-criticism. Negative emotions like guilt and shame can actually drain your willpower further, making it harder to get back on track. Instead, practice kindness to yourself and refocus on your long-term goals. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Willpower and habits are not enemies in this battle, but partners in a delicate dance. Willpower provides the push to start, but habits are what carry us forward. By understanding the strengths and limitations of both, we can navigate this ongoing struggle and take control of the habits that shape our lives. In the next segment of our journey, we'll explore the habit loop, how it works, and why it's so powerful. This understanding will help you break free from old patterns and build new habits that align with your goals. Let's continue unraveling the science behind the routines that govern us. Have you ever found yourself doing something without really thinking about it, only to realize later that you've done it countless times before? Maybe it's grabbing your phone as soon as you wake up, or automatically reaching for a cup of coffee the moment you sit down at your desk. These actions aren't just random behaviors, they are habits. And at the core of every habit is what's known as the habit loop. The habit loop is the cycle that drives our automatic behaviors. It's made up of 3 essential components: the trigger, the action, and the reward. Understanding how this loop works is key to understanding how habits are formed, how they stick, and how they can be changed. Let's break it down. The trigger, also known as the cue, is the initial spark that sets the loop in motion. It's what prompts you to begin the habit. The trigger can be something external, like the sound of your alarm clock, the sight of a snack, or the feeling of stress, or something internal, like an emotional thought. This cue serves as a signal to your brain that it's time to engage in a certain behavior. For example, think about the habit of having a cup of coffee every morning. The trigger might be the moment you wake up, or the act of walking into the kitchen. It could even be something more subtle, like the thought of needing energy, or the comforting ritual of brewing a hot drink. Whatever it is, the trigger sets off the next part of the loop, the action. The action is the behavior you perform in response to the trigger. It's the habit itself, the routine you follow once you've been cued. In the case of coffee, the action might be going to the coffee maker, preparing the coffee, and then drinking it. It's the physical or mental response you make once the trigger has occurred. At this point, you may not even be fully aware that you're doing it. The behavior happens automatically, and the more often it's repeated, the more ingrained the action becomes. The final part of the habit loop is the reward. This is the positive feeling or outcome that you get from completing the action. It's the part that your brain craves, because it signals that the behavior has led to something enjoyable or beneficial. The reward reinforces the action and makes it more likely that you'll repeat the habit in the future. With our coffee example, the reward is the satisfying feeling of the caffeine kick, the comfort of the ritual, or the boost of energy that comes from that first sip. It's the payoff that your brain registers as a positive result, strengthening the connection between the trigger and the action. Over time, as this cycle repeats, the habit becomes more automatic, and the brain learns to expect the reward whenever the trigger occurs. What's fascinating about the habit loop is that it operates largely on autopilot. Once the loop has been established, it doesn't require conscious thought to complete. The trigger sets off the action, and the reward follows. Your brain has learned to associate the behavior with the positive outcome, so it continues to loop without you needing to actively engage with each step. This is why habits can be so powerful. They're deeply embedded in our neural pathways and can run without us even realizing it. But the loop doesn't only apply to positive habits. It also works for negative behaviors. For example, let's say you have a habit of reaching for a cigarette when you're feeling stressed. In this case, the trigger might be the sensation of stress or anxiety. The action is lighting the cigarette and smoking it, and the reward is the temporary feeling of relief or relaxation. The habit loop works just as effectively for these less than ideal habits, reinforcing the behavior and making it hard to break. The key to changing a habit lies in understanding the habit loop and how each component works. If you want to break a negative habit or replace it with a healthier one, you have to target one of these three elements. There are several strategies for doing this, but the most effective approach is to keep the trigger and the reward the same while changing the action. For instance, if you want to replace the smoking habit with something healthier, you might keep the trigger the same, stress or anxiety, but substitute the action with something that provides a similar reward. Instead of smoking, you could try taking deep breaths, going for a walk, or using a stress relief technique that works for you. The idea is that by offering a similar reward, stress relief, you can gradually retrain your brain to associate the trigger with a different behavior. Alternatively, you might change the trigger entirely. For example, if you have the habit of snacking when you're bored, you could try replacing the feeling of boredom with a new activity that doesn't involve eating. By shifting the circumstances that prompt the habit, you can disrupt the loop and create space for a new behavior to form. One of the most effective methods for creating lasting change is to work on altering the reward. The reward is what your brain is really seeking, so by introducing a more desirable or healthier reward, you can help the new habit stick. For example, if you want to build the habit of exercising regularly, the reward might be the feeling of accomplishment or the boost of energy you get afterward. Over time, as the positive emotions from the reward reinforce the new behavior, the habit loop will begin to change, and the new action, exercise, will become automatic. What's important to recognize is that the habit loop is not set in stone. The brain's neuroplasticity means that with consistent effort and intention, you can rewire the loop. It takes time and repetition, but by understanding the mechanics of the habit loop, you have the power to shape the behaviors that define your life. This is why habits are so powerful, but also why they're changeable. Once you understand how the cycle works, you can actively choose to replace old habits with new ones that align with your goals. The key is in the repetition, the rewards, and the willingness to experiment with different triggers and actions until you find the right combination. As we move forward in this journey, we'll explore how the brain's wiring and its need for rewards can help us understand the process of habit formation even more deeply. Next, we'll dive into the science behind why certain habits stick, why others fade, and how you can use this knowledge to transform your life, one loop at a time. Every time you repeat an action, your brain undergoes a subtle transformation. The act of repeating a behavior creates physical changes in the structure of your brain, reinforcing the connection between the trigger, the action, and the reward. This is the science of repetition, the driving force behind how habits form, solidify, and become ingrained in our daily lives. It's not magic or mere coincidence that habits stick. The brain is a highly adaptive organ, and it's constantly adjusting and strengthening neural pathways based on the patterns of behavior you repeat. To understand why habits stick, we need to first look at how the brain processes repetition. When you perform a behavior over and over again, it sends signals through the neural circuits in your brain, particularly those connected to the basal ganglia. This part of the brain plays a key role in habit formation, motor control, and the reinforcement of learned behaviors. The The more frequently you repeat an action, the more the neural pathways associated with that behavior are strengthened. Initially, when you engage in a new behavior, it requires conscious effort. Your prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for decision-making and planning, has to work overtime to help you focus and execute the action. This is why starting a new habit can be so challenging. The brain is not yet familiar with the action, and it demands active engagement to make the decision to act. At this stage, willpower and conscious thought are key. But with repeated practice, the brain begins to shift the responsibility for the behavior to a different part of the brain, the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia act like a filter, automatically processing repeated actions so that they no longer require conscious thought. Instead of using up your cognitive resources, the behavior becomes automatic, and the brain begins to save energy by running the behavior on autopilot. This is the process of habit formation, and it's largely driven by the power of repetition. As habits are reinforced through repetition, the brain strengthens the synapses, or the connections between neurons, involved in that behavior. Essentially, your brain wires itself to make that action easier and more efficient to perform. The more often you repeat the behavior, the more robust these neural connections become, making the action feel almost effortless. This is why habits can be so hard to break once they've been formed. They are deeply ingrained in the brain structure, and your brain has become highly efficient at performing them. But why do some habits stick, while others seem to fade away, no matter how much you try to repeat them? The answer lies in a combination of repetition, reinforcement, and reward. Repetition alone is not enough to form a lasting habit. The brain needs a reason to reinforce the behavior, and that reason typically comes in the form of a reward. When you perform an action and experience a positive outcome, whether it's the relief of stress, the satisfaction of completing a task, or the pleasure of a snack, the brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. Dopamine is your brain's way of saying, "This feels good, do it again." Over time, the release of dopamine strengthens the neural connections tied to that behavior, reinforcing the habit and making it more likely that you'll repeat it in the future. This is why habits that provide a clear and immediate reward are often easier to establish. The brain quickly associates the action with a positive outcome, reinforcing the behavior through repetition. On the other hand, habits that lack immediate rewards or that take longer to produce results may take longer to form or may fade away altogether. This is why new habits like exercise can be so difficult to establish. While the long-term benefits are significant, the immediate rewards are often less apparent, making it harder for the brain to build the same reinforcement loop that a quicker reward might offer. The brain also relies on context to reinforce habits. The environment in which you repeat a behavior plays a significant role in how strongly the habit becomes ingrained. If a specific context, whether it's a particular time of day, location, or social setting, constantly triggers the same behavior, the brain will begin to link that context with the habit. This is why habits are often strongly tied to certain routines. For example, if you always meditate first thing in the morning in a quiet space, your brain will eventually associate that environment with the practice of meditation, making it easier to engage in the behavior without much conscious thought. Interestingly, the brain's ability to form habits through repetition is also a double-edged sword. While it helps us to build automatic behaviors, it can also make it easy to form unhealthy habits. For instance, if you consistently reach for unhealthy foods during stressful moments, the brain starts to associate stress with eating, reinforcing the habit and making it harder to break. The same process that helps you form beneficial habits can also lead to the formation of less desirable ones. This is why understanding the science of repetition is so critical. It gives you the tools to change the habits that no longer serve you. To change an old habit, you don't necessarily have to erase it completely. Instead, you can replace it with a new behavior by focusing on repetition and reward. The key to rewiring your brain is to create a new, positive habit that provides a similar reward to the old habit but is healthier or more aligned with your goals. For example, if stress leads you to eat junk food, you could replace that behavior with a healthier stress relief practice, like taking a walk or doing a few minutes of deep breathing. By consistently repeating the new behavior and pairing it with a reward, whether it's the feeling of relief from stress, the sense of accomplishment, or a boost in mood, you can slowly rewire your brain to favor the new habit over the old one. However, the process of rewiring your brain takes time. Habits, once formed, are not easily undone. The neural pathways associated with the old habit don't disappear overnight. Instead, they fade with less repetition and are gradually replaced by the new connections formed by the new behavior. This process can be slow, but with consistent practice, the new habit will eventually become as automatic as the old one. It's also important to remember that the science of repetition isn't just about doing something over and over again. The quality of the repetition matters too. Research shows that when you focus on improving a behavior with each repetition, whether by increasing the intensity, duration, or effort, you create stronger and more durable habits. This is why setting specific goals or making incremental progress can help speed up the process of habit formation. Every small improvement reinforces the neural connections tied to the behavior, making it more likely that you'll continue the habit over time. In the next part of our journey, we'll look deeper into the factors that make certain habits stick and others fade away. We'll explore why some habits are easier to build than others, and how you can optimize your environment and mindset to increase your chances of success. As we continue, we'll uncover the secrets behind why repetition works so well in forming habits, and how to use this knowledge to your advantage. Habits, by nature, are automatic. They begin as conscious actions requiring effort and attention, but over time they become ingrained in the brain, slipping into the subconscious where they run almost entirely on autopilot. This is what makes habits both powerful and efficient. Once formed, they require little conscious thought to execute. Yet the question remains, how can we take these automatic behaviors and intentionally shape them into something even better? How can we turn good habits into great ones? To begin, let's acknowledge a simple truth. We all have habits, whether we realize it or not. Some of them are helpful, like brushing your teeth every morning or making your bed as soon as you wake up. Others are less so, like procrastinating on important tasks or reaching for junk food when you're stressed. The key to transforming good habits into great ones lies in intentionality, the process of taking conscious control over these automatic behaviors and guiding them toward your highest potential. Intentionality starts with awareness. The first step in turning a good habit into a great one is becoming aware of the behaviors that already serve you well. You need to evaluate which habits are currently contributing positively to your life and which ones might need refinement or improvement. For instance, if you've developed a habit of exercising 3 times a week, that's a good habit, but you might want to turn it into a great habit by making it more structured or challenging. The idea isn't to discard the good habits, but rather to enhance them, pushing them to their fullest potential. This is where the concept of deliberate practice comes into play. Deliberate practice involves making intentional efforts to improve upon a skill or behavior by setting specific, measurable goals, tracking progress, and continuously adjusting your approach to get better. It's not just about repeating an action. It's about constantly refining it to achieve better results. If your habit is working out, deliberate practice could mean increasing the intensity of your workouts over time, or trying new exercises that target different muscle groups. By pushing your boundaries, you force your brain to engage in the habit in a more intentional and focused way. When transforming a good habit into a great one, it's important to introduce variation. The brain thrives on novelty. It loves to learn and be challenged, and doing the same thing every day, even if it's beneficial, can eventually lead to a plateau. This is why simply sticking to a routine without any adjustments can eventually feel stagnant. By adding variety to your routine, you challenge your brain to adapt, which in turn helps the habit become more deeply embedded in your mind. Let's say you have the habit of reading every night before bed, a great habit for personal growth and relaxation. But if you always read the same type of book, your brain may grow accustomed to the behavior, making it feel more like a chore than a rewarding habit. To take this habit from good to great, you could introduce diversity into your reading material. Try different genres, authors, or subjects. You might even set a goal to read books that push you out of your comfort zone or introduce new ways of thinking. This keeps the habit fresh, exciting, and aligned with your broader goals. While novelty is important, consistency remains key. One of the biggest challenges in turning good habits into great ones is maintaining the routine over time. Habits need consistency to become automatic. In fact, one of the biggest reasons habits falter is because they are abandoned too soon. People start with enthusiasm, but once the novelty wears off or the progress isn't immediately noticeable, they lose interest. The secret to transforming a good habit into a great one is persistence. Keep showing up even when the results aren't immediately visible. Consistency is the foundation of lasting habit change, but consistency doesn't mean rigid repetition. It means maintaining the core behavior while being flexible enough to adjust it when needed. Flexibility ensures that the habit remains sustainable, and it also helps prevent burnout. For example, if you're trying to develop the habit of exercising daily, some days will be harder than others. Instead of sticking to the exact same routine every day, allow yourself the flexibility to adjust the intensity or duration based on how you feel. Some days you may run a few miles, while other days you may opt for a lighter yoga session. The key is that you're still showing up for the habit, even if the form it takes varies. Another strategy for turning a good habit into a great one is to link it to a larger goal or purpose. Habits that are connected to a bigger purpose or personal value tend to stick longer and with more motivation. For instance, if you have the habit of eating healthy but feel it's a struggle, reframing the habit to align with a larger goal, like improving your overall health, increasing your energy levels, or feeling more confident, can make the habit feel more meaningful. When the behavior is linked to something that resonates with your values, it becomes not just a habit, but a key part of your identity. The more personal meaning you attach to a habit, the more motivated you become to keep it up. In this context, self-reflection plays a vital role. Ask yourself, what is the deeper purpose behind the habits I am forming? Are these habits helping me grow in the direction I want to go? Is there room to push these habits to the next level so that they align more closely with the person I want to become? It's easy to stick to a good habit, but it's harder to elevate it unless you take the time to reflect on your larger vision and consciously align your habits with your goals. As you begin to implement these strategies, deliberate practice, variation, consistency, and purpose, you'll notice that your good habits will naturally evolve into great ones. The habits will become more rewarding, more aligned with your goals, and more deeply ingrained in your routine. But it's important to remember that this transformation takes time. The process of turning a good habit into a great one is gradual. It's about making small, intentional changes that, when compounded over time, lead to massive improvements. Lastly, let's talk about tracking progress. Tracking isn't just for measuring success. It's a tool that helps reinforce the habit. It provides you with tangible evidence of your progress, which in turn fuels motivation. Whether you track your workouts, your diet, or the time spent on a productive task, seeing the results of your efforts can increase your satisfaction and provide the encouragement you need to keep moving forward. By monitoring your progress, you also make it easier to identify when things start to slip. It allows you to course correct before a good habit starts to fade into oblivion. Whether you use a journal, an app, or a simple checklist, having a way to measure your efforts helps keep the habit on track and growing stronger. The key to turning good habits into great ones is not about striving for perfection. It's about gradual, intentional improvement. By making small, consistent adjustments, adding variety, connecting your habits to a larger purpose, and tracking your progress, you can take any habit that's already serving you well and elevate it to a new level. The transformation is subtle but powerful, and it requires you to be mindful and deliberate in your approach. As we continue our exploration of habits, we'll take a closer look at the role of environment and social influences in shaping our habits, and how you can intentionally design your surroundings to support the habits you want to cultivate. Let's move forward in creating a life where intentional habits drive you towards success and fulfillment. Our environment is more than just a backdrop to our daily lives. It's a powerful force that shapes our behaviours and, by extension, the habits we form. Whether we realise it or not, the spaces we inhabit, the people we interact with, and the cues we encounter throughout the day play a critical role in determining how our habits unfold. If you're trying to change or develop habits, one of the most effective ways to do so is to leverage your environment. After all, our surroundings are constantly sending signals to our brains, influencing our actions, decisions, and ultimately, the habits that become part of our routine. Let's start by looking at how the environment acts as a subtle, yet constant influence on our behaviour. The cues in your environment, whether physical objects, social situations, or even the time of day, serve as triggers for habits. For example, if you work in a cluttered, disorganised space, you may find it harder to focus or be productive. The visual chaos around you becomes a trigger for distraction, pulling your attention away from the task at hand. On the other hand, a clean, organised workspace signals to your brain that it's time to focus and work. The state of your environment directly impacts the way you feel and act, influencing your ability to establish and maintain certain habits. A classic example of how your environment can shape your behaviour is the way food is stored in your home. If unhealthy snacks are easily accessible, perhaps sitting on the kitchen counter or placed within arm's reach, your brain is constantly exposed to the cue of convenience, making it more likely that you'll reach for those snacks when hunger strikes. Conversely, if healthy snacks are placed in visible, easily accessible areas, the same automatic cues will encourage you to make better food choices. The environment sets up the path of least resistance, making it easier to engage in behaviours that align with your goals. This principle also applies to larger lifestyle habits. For example, if you want to build a habit of exercising regularly, one of the first things you can do is adjust your environment to make exercise more convenient and less of a hassle. Place your workout clothes and shoes in a visible location. Set up your exercise equipment where it's easily accessible, and remove any obstacles that could prevent you from getting started. The easier you make it for yourself to take action, the more likely the behaviour will become a regular habit. But it's not just about physical objects or spaces. The social environment around you also plays a significant role in shaping your habits. The people you spend time with, the expectations they set, and the behaviours they model all influence the habits you form. This is why it's so important to surround yourself with individuals who support your goals and share similar values. The people around you create social cues that reinforce certain behaviours, often without you even realising it. Think about the habits of your closest friends or family members. If they prioritise health and fitness, chances are you're more likely to engage in those behaviours as well. Their routines and behaviours provide cues that trigger similar actions in your own life. On the flip side, if the people you spend time with tend to indulge in unhealthy habits, like smoking, excessive drinking, or overeating, those behaviours may become normalised and influence your own choices. Social influence works in both positive and negative ways, making it essential to choose your social environment wisely if you want to cultivate healthy habits. This idea is well captured by the concept of social norms, the unwritten rules of behaviour that govern our interactions and choices. Social norms can strongly influence our habits, as we tend to conform to the expectations of those around us. For example, in a workplace where long hours and constant availability are the norm, you may feel pressured to overwork, leading to habits of burnout and stress. Alternatively, In a social circle that values work-life balance, you're more likely to adopt habits that support your mental and physical well-being. The influence of the environment doesn't stop with physical spaces or social circles. The digital environment we interact with on a daily basis also plays a significant role in shaping our habits. The apps, websites, and devices we use constantly send signals to our brains, triggering habitual behaviors. Social media, for example, is designed to capture our attention and keep us scrolling. The notifications, likes, and comments serve as small rewards, reinforcing the habit of checking our phones throughout the day. If your goal is to reduce screen time or improve focus, you may need to intentionally adjust your digital environment. This could involve turning off non-essential notifications, deleting distracting apps, or setting specific times for checking emails or social media. Similarly, your physical environment can also influence your emotional and cognitive states, which in turn affect your habits. For instance, if you spend most of your time in a cluttered, chaotic space, it can increase feelings of stress and overwhelm, which may trigger negative habits like procrastination or avoidance. A more organized, calm, and aesthetically pleasing environment can promote feelings of peace and focus, making it easier to engage in positive, intentional habits. This is why creating a space that supports your desired habits is such a powerful tool. It's not about changing yourself, it's about changing your environment to make it easier to be the person you want to be. When trying to establish or change a habit, the context in which it's practiced is key. The brain loves cues. It thrives on them. That's why you can easily fall into the habit of checking your phone every time you hear a notification. Your brain learns to associate that sound with the action of picking up your phone. By changing your environment or the context around the behavior, you can shift the cues and make it easier to engage in the habits you want to form. For example, if you're trying to read more, make it easier by placing books in strategic spots around your house, on your nightstand, on the coffee table, or by your favorite chair. By surrounding yourself with books, you're creating visual cues that will encourage you to pick one up whenever you have a spare moment. This subtle environmental change can make a huge difference in whether or not the habit sticks. Another powerful tool for leveraging your environment is the concept of environmental design, which involves intentionally structuring your surroundings to promote desired behaviors and discourage undesired ones. This might mean setting up your home office to be free of distractions, creating a designated area for exercise, or removing unhealthy foods from your kitchen. The idea is simple. Design your environment so that it makes it easier to engage in the habits you want to build and harder to fall into the behaviors you want to avoid. The role of the environment is one of the most underappreciated factors in habit formation. It shapes your behavior in ways that you may not consciously notice, but these influences are incredibly powerful. The good news is that by understanding this, you can take control of your environment and design it in a way that supports your desired habits. Whether it's organizing your physical space, choosing your social circle carefully, or adjusting your digital surroundings, you have the power to create an environment that fosters the habits you want to cultivate. In the next segment, we'll explore how social support and accountability can further reinforce your habits. While the environment plays a huge role, having the right people around you and setting up systems of support can amplify the effectiveness of your efforts. Let's continue our journey in shaping the habits that drive our success. It's easy to establish good habits, but much harder to break the bad ones. We all have behaviors in our lives that we know don't serve us, habits that are unhealthy, unproductive, or simply undesirable. Despite knowing this, we often find ourselves trapped in repetitive cycles, unable to escape. Whether it's eating too much junk food, procrastinating on important tasks, smoking, or any other detrimental habit, the challenge of rewriting our habit story is real, but it's not impossible. Understanding why habits are so hard to break, combined with the right strategies and mindset, can help you finally take control and transform those behaviors. Let's first explore why bad habits are so stubborn. Habits, by their very nature, are designed to be automatic. Once a behavior is repeated enough, the brain begins to rely on it as a default. This is particularly true for bad habits, as they often involve a quick and easy reward. Your brain gets used to the immediate payoff, whether it's the temporary satisfaction of a sugary snack, the relief of procrastination, or the calming effects of smoking. The problem is, these rewards are short-lived, and while they might feel good in the moment, they can lead to long-term negative consequences. Yet, the brain still craves that immediate gratification, and over time, it becomes harder to break free from the cycle. The reason this cycle is so challenging is because of how the habit loop works. In a habit loop, the trigger leads to the action, which is followed by the reward. Over time, the brain strengthens the neural pathways associated with this loop, making the behavior more automatic and harder to disrupt. This is why bad habits, like overeating or smoking, often feel like they have a hold over us. The cues, whether they are emotional triggers, environmental cues, or social influences, lead us to automatically engage in the action, which then leads to the reward. This feedback loop keeps us trapped in a cycle where we feel like we have no control over the behavior, but understanding the mechanics of how habits form is only the first step. The real challenge lies in how to break free from that loop and rewrite the story of our habits. It's important to recognize that breaking a habit isn't about sheer willpower or simply deciding to stop. Instead, it's about disrupting the existing habit loop and replacing it with a new, healthier one. One of the most effective strategies for breaking a bad habit is to identify and change the trigger. The trigger, or cue, is the starting point for any habit. If you want to stop a bad habit, you need to become more aware of the triggers that set it off. For instance, if you tend to snack on unhealthy foods when you're feeling stressed, the emotional state of stress is acting as the trigger for the behavior. Identifying these triggers is essential because once you recognize what sets off the behavior, you can begin to intervene and replace the old action with a new one. Let's say that stress is the trigger for your bad habit. Instead of automatically reaching for comfort food, you could replace the action with a healthier coping mechanism, such as taking a few deep breaths, going for a walk, or practicing mindfulness. The key is to provide a new, positive action that satisfies the same need or emotional response. By consistently substituting the new behavior for the old one, you begin to rewire your brain, gradually shifting the habit loop. The new behavior may not provide the same immediate gratification as the bad habit, but over time, as you experience the positive effects of the new habit, the brain will begin to associate the new action with the reward. Another powerful strategy for breaking bad habits is to change the reward. The reward is what reinforces the habit and makes the brain want to repeat the behavior. In the case of bad habits, the reward may be the momentary satisfaction or relief that comes from the behavior. But to successfully break the habit, you need to find a new reward that is just as compelling, if not more so. For example, if your bad habit is procrastination, the reward might be the temporary relief of avoiding a stressful task. To break this habit, you need to find a different reward, something that makes you feel good about taking action instead of putting things off. This could be the sense of accomplishment you feel after completing a task, or the relief of reducing anxiety because you've made progress. The key is to make the new reward meaningful and satisfying enough to make you want to continue the new behavior. Over time, as the new reward reinforces the new habit, the old habit will lose its appeal. Environmental design also plays a crucial role in breaking bad habits. If your environment is set up in a way that reinforces your bad habits, it will be much harder to break free. For example, if you're trying to quit smoking but have cigarettes easily accessible in your home, the temptation will be stronger every time you see them. The visual cues will act as triggers, making it harder to resist the urge to smoke. In this case, a simple change, such as removing cigarettes from your home or avoiding situations where you typically smoke, can help break the loop. It's also important to create an environment that supports your new, healthier habits. If you're trying to exercise more, for example, set up a space in your home where it's easy to engage in physical activity. Place your workout gear in a visible spot, make it convenient to exercise, and eliminate obstacles that might stand in your way. The less effort it takes to engage in the new behaviour, the more likely you are to stick with it. Breaking a bad habit also requires self-compassion. It's easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism when we slip up, but negative self-talk can actually reinforce the bad habit. It can lead to feelings of guilt and shame, which only make it harder to break free from the cycle. Instead, practice self-compassion by acknowledging that changing habits is difficult and that setbacks are part of the process. When you do slip up, treat yourself with kindness and refocus on your goal. Remember, the journey to breaking a habit is not linear. It's filled with progress, setbacks, and small victories. Finally, it's essential to track your progress. Seeing the small changes and improvements you make along the way can help reinforce the new habit and keep you motivated. Whether it's through a journal, an app, or simply checking off days on a calendar, tracking your progress provides visual evidence of your efforts, which can help you stay on course. It's also a way to celebrate your successes and remind yourself that breaking a bad habit is possible. Breaking bad habits is a challenging but entirely achievable goal. It's about disrupting the existing habit loop, understanding the role of triggers, actions, and rewards, and consciously replacing the old behaviour with a new one. It requires persistence, self-compassion, and a willingness to be patient as you rewire your brain. By creating an environment that supports your new habits, changing your approach to rewards, and tracking your progress, you can rewrite your habit story and move closer to the person you want to become. In the next part of our exploration, we'll look at how to build lasting willpower and how to sustain your new habits over the long term. Breaking a bad habit is one thing, but maintaining a positive, sustainable habit is another challenge. Let's continue this journey to fully take control of the habits that shape our lives. Willpower is often seen as the fuel that powers our efforts to create new habits or break old ones. It's the internal force that helps us resist temptations, make decisions, and push ourselves to do the things we know we should, even when we don't feel like it. Whether it's saying no to an unhealthy snack, staying focused at work, or forcing yourself to exercise after a long day, willpower is the engine that drives our actions toward positive change. But here's the catch. Willpower is a limited resource. It's not infinite, and it's something that can wear down over time, especially when we rely on it too heavily. Understanding the true nature of willpower is crucial to successfully managing and harnessing it to support your habits. Far from being an endless well of strength, willpower operates more like a muscle. The more we use it, the more fatigued it becomes. And just like physical muscles, willpower can be strengthened with practice, but it can also become depleted, leaving us more vulnerable to the pull of old habits or new temptations. This phenomenon is known as ego depletion. Research has shown that when we exert self-control, whether it's resisting a cookie or avoiding distractions at work, we're tapping into our store of willpower. The more we use, the less we have left for other tasks. It's like trying to power through a full day of work without ever taking a break. Eventually your energy runs low, and your ability to make good decisions starts to wane. In the context of habits, this depletion means that when you're constantly relying on willpower to stick to your goals, you're setting yourself up for burnout. Willpower alone is not enough to sustain long-term habit change. It's simply not a dependable, infinite resource. But that doesn't mean willpower is useless. On the contrary, willpower is an essential tool, especially in the initial stages of habit formation. When a habit is new and unfamiliar, it requires a conscious effort to perform. Willpower is what helps you push through the discomfort of doing something that doesn't come naturally. But as we've learned, this process can be taxing, and relying solely on willpower isn't sustainable. This is where the real challenge lies. How do we move from relying on willpower to relying on something more reliable, like routine or automatic behaviour? The answer lies in understanding the power of habit. Once a behaviour is repeated enough times, it moves from the conscious effort of willpower to the automatic processes of the brain. This shift from effort to ease is key to long-term success. But getting to that point requires more than just brute force. It requires strategy, structure, and the use of external supports to reduce reliance on willpower. Let's start with habit stacking. One of the most effective ways to reduce the need for willpower is by stacking new habits onto existing ones. By linking a new behavior with something you already do automatically, you're using the power of your established habits to guide you toward the new one. This is one way to sidestep the need for willpower entirely. For example, if you already have the habit of brushing your teeth every morning, you can stack a new habit like drinking a glass of water right after brushing your teeth. The act of brushing your teeth becomes a trigger for the new behavior, and soon enough, it becomes as automatic as the original habit. Another strategy to reduce reliance on willpower is environmental design. By setting up your environment to support your goals, you create situations in which good habits are easier to perform. This removes the need to rely on willpower to make decisions in the moment. For example, if you want to eat healthier, stock your kitchen with healthy foods and make them easily accessible. If you're trying to exercise more, lay out your workout clothes the night before, so you don't have to spend energy deciding whether to work out in the morning. By changing your environment, you remove the need to constantly use willpower to make decisions, letting the environment work in your favour. Creating small wins is another way to navigate the limited resource of willpower. Instead of setting a large, daunting goal, break it down into smaller, more manageable steps. These smaller wins will not only keep you motivated, but will also reduce the mental energy required to get started. When you have smaller, achievable targets, you don't need to summon as much willpower to begin. For example, instead of committing to an hour-long workout every day, start with 15 minutes. Once you build the habit of working out for those 15 minutes, you'll find it easier to gradually increase the duration. It's also important to acknowledge that self-compassion plays a significant role in maintaining willpower. The more you beat yourself up for failing or falling off track, the more likely it is that your willpower will drain faster. Negative emotions like guilt, shame, and frustration don't just make you feel bad. They also deplete your willpower reserves, making it harder to get back on track. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, practice self-compassion. Accept that setbacks are a part of the process and treat yourself with kindness when things don't go as planned. This helps preserve willpower and maintain motivation over the long term. In the quest for better habits, it's also helpful to track progress and celebrate small victories. Tracking provides concrete evidence of your efforts, which can act as a powerful motivator. When you see how far you've come, it reinforces your commitment to the habit and lessens the reliance on willpower to push through. It's also a way to identify where your willpower is most drained and to adjust your strategies accordingly. If you're consistently struggling at certain points in your habit-building process, tracking allows you to identify these bottlenecks and find ways to reduce friction. Moreover, accountability plays an important role in supplementing willpower. When you share your goals with others, you create an external source of motivation and support that can help you stay on track when your willpower wanes. Whether it's a friend, a family member, or even a community group, having someone to check in with and encourage you makes the process of habit building much easier. It's easier to keep going when you know someone else is rooting for your success. Finally, it's important to reframe willpower as a tool, not a solution. Willpower is most useful in the initial stages of behavior change, but it's not something you should rely on indefinitely. To make habits stick long term, they need to become automatic, integrated into your routine, and supported by external structures, like a conducive environment and accountability. Willpower can help get you started, but it's the systems you put in place that will carry you through. Willpower is undoubtedly a limited resource, but that doesn't mean it's powerless. It's about using it wisely, complementing it with strategies like habit stacking, environmental design, and tracking progress, and ultimately allowing habits to take root in your subconscious, where they no longer require constant effort to maintain. When willpower and habits work together, you can achieve lasting change. As we move forward in this series, we'll take a deeper dive into how to build mental resilience and master self-discipline to help support your long-term goals and habits. Let's continue to explore how we can unlock the full potential of willpower and turn our habits into a lasting source of personal growth. The idea of changing habits often feels like an uphill battle, especially when those habits are deeply ingrained. Whether it's reaching for unhealthy snacks, procrastinating on tasks, or avoiding exercise, it seems like our brain is wired to continue repeating these behaviors despite our best efforts to change. However, the exciting truth is that our brain is not fixed. It is malleable and capable of change. This adaptability is known as neuroplasticity, and it holds the key to not only breaking bad habits but also forming new ones that align with our goals. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. The more we practice a behavior, the stronger and more efficient the neural pathways associated with that behavior become. This is why repetition plays such a crucial role in habit formation and why it's so powerful in creating lasting change. When you repeat a behavior over time, the connections in your brain grow stronger, and eventually the behavior becomes automatic. But this process doesn't just apply to good habits, it also applies to breaking bad ones. The brain is constantly adapting to the patterns and routines that we create. Every time we engage in a behavior, a signal is sent through the neurons in the brain, and a new connection is formed. This process is similar to creating a well-worn path in the woods. The more you walk down that path, the clearer and easier it becomes to navigate. With each repetition, the path grows more defined, and the behavior becomes easier to perform. Over time, the brain learns to perform the behavior with less effort, relying on the strengthened neural connections. For example, if you've been practicing a new habit, like going for a run every morning, the brain forms new neural pathways that make it easier for you to engage in that behavior. At first, it might feel like a struggle, and you have to use willpower to push through. But as you continue to run each day, your brain's pathways related to exercise become more efficient, and the act of running becomes easier and more automatic. Eventually, running becomes just another part of your routine, requiring much less mental effort to begin and sustain. This process is especially important when it comes to breaking bad habits. When you engage in a habit, whether it's smoking, overeating, or procrastination, you're reinforcing neural connections that make it more difficult to stop. The brain has become accustomed to the reward system tied to the habit, making it feel almost impossible to break free. However, just as new neural pathways are formed when creating positive habits, they can also be restructured when you work to change old negative behaviors. One of the most effective ways to break a bad habit is to replace it with a new, healthier behavior. This might sound simple, but it taps into the principle of neuroplasticity in a powerful way. When you replace a bad habit with a positive one, your brain starts to rewire itself. The neural pathways tied to the bad behavior begin to weaken as they are no longer reinforced, while the pathways associated with the new healthier behavior are strengthened through repetition. Over time, the new habit becomes more automatic, while the old one fades into the background. For example, if you're trying to stop eating junk food when stressed, you might replace that behavior with something more beneficial, like deep breathing or taking a short walk. Each time you engage in the new behavior, your brain creates new neural connections. These new connections reinforce the healthier habit and weaken the neural pathways tied to stress-induced eating. As you continue to practice the new behavior, the brain adapts, making it easier to engage in the positive habit without thinking about it. The power of neuroplasticity lies in its ability to form new pathways at any stage of life. Whether you're in your 20s or your 70s, your brain is always capable of change, though it may require more effort and consistency with age. The more you engage in a new behavior and repeat it over time, the stronger those neural connections become, making the behavior more automatic and ingrained. Another critical aspect of neuroplasticity and habit formation is reinforcement. As mentioned earlier, the brain relies on rewards to reinforce behaviors. The release of dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, strengthens neural pathways and encourages the repetition of the behavior. When you engage in a behavior that feels good or rewarding, whether it's the satisfaction of completing a task, the joy of physical activity, or the pleasure of eating a healthy meal, your brain releases dopamine, signaling that the action was positive and worth repeating. This reward system is a double-edged sword, however. Bad habits like overeating or procrastinating are often reinforced by quick rewards that provide instant gratification, which is why they can be so difficult to break. The pleasure or relief you experience from a bad habit, whether it's the taste of junk food or the temporary escape from a difficult task, triggers dopamine release, reinforcing the neural pathways associated with that behavior. This makes it more likely that you'll return to the habit in the future. To change a bad habit, the goal is to weaken the neural connections associated with the old behavior by decreasing the rewards associated with it. In the case of procrastination, for example, the immediate relief you get from avoiding a task is the reward that reinforces the habit. To break this cycle, you need to change the reward system. Instead of the instant gratification of avoidance, you can create a new reward for completing the task. This could be as simple as enjoying a cup of tea after finishing a project or taking a break to relax. By rewarding the new behavior, you reinforce the neural pathways that support it and begin to weaken the pathways tied to procrastination. The process of rewiring the brain through neuroplasticity isn't always easy, and it takes time. Just like it takes time to form a new habit, it also takes time to break an old one. But by consistently practicing the new behavior and reinforcing it with rewards, you're gradually shifting the brain's neural network, making the new habit feel more automatic. It's also important to note that stress can play a role in neuroplasticity. High levels of chronic stress can impede the brain's ability to form new connections and weaken existing ones. Stress hormones like cortisol can negatively affect the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for learning and memory. Therefore, managing stress is crucial when working to change habits. Incorporating stress reduction techniques, such as mindfulness, exercise, or relaxation exercises, can help keep your brain in an optimal state for rewiring and adapting to new behaviors. Ultimately, the neuroplasticity of habits shows us that change is always possible, no matter how entrenched a behavior may seem. With consistent practice, repetition, and reinforcement, the brain can adapt and new habits can take root. The key is to be patient and persistent. The brain's ability to change is a powerful tool, and when we understand how it works, we can use that knowledge to reshape our habits, one neural pathway at a time. As we continue our exploration of habits, we'll dive deeper into the role of emotion and memory in habit formation, and how they influence the strength of new behaviors. Let's keep moving forward on this journey of understanding how the brain works to create lasting change. Habits have a way of quietly weaving themselves into the fabric of our daily lives, often influencing more than we initially realize. The seemingly small decision to make a healthier choice, start exercising, or read a book every day can create a ripple effect impacting other areas of our lives in profound ways. Once established, habits don't just operate in isolation, they interact with and influence each other, creating a web of interconnected behaviors. The idea that one habit can set off a chain reaction of positive changes is a powerful concept, and it's one of the reasons why the habits we choose to develop are so significant. At the heart of this ripple effect is the idea of compounding behaviors. Just as small actions can add up over time to create significant results, so too can small positive habits ripple out and begin influencing other aspects of our lives. A single habit might start as a simple change. Perhaps you begin exercising more regularly, but as you continue with that habit, you begin to notice other areas of your life improving as well. You might sleep better, feel more energized, or find that you're making healthier food choices without even trying. Over time, the effects of one good habit compound, creating a wave of positive change across different facets of your life. This idea is often referred to as the keystone habit. A keystone habit is one that has the power to influence a wide range of other behaviors, For example, exercising regularly is a keystone habit for many people because it not only improves physical health, but also leads to improvements in mental well-being, sleep, productivity, and eating habits. Similarly, starting your day with a morning routine, whether it's meditation, journaling, or a healthy breakfast, can set a positive tone for the rest of the day, influencing how you approach work, relationships, and personal goals. What's fascinating about the ripple effect is that the impact of a single habit is often much greater than we anticipate. In fact, sometimes the benefits of one habit aren't immediately obvious. It's only when you look at the long-term picture that you begin to see how interconnected everything is. A simple change, like reading for 15 minutes each morning, might initially seem like a small, isolated act. But over time, you may notice that it improves your focus, enhances your vocabulary, or even sparks new ideas for personal or professional growth. That 15 minutes of reading has the potential to create a ripple effect that influences many other areas of your life, from communication skills to problem solving to overall creativity. The ripple effect isn't always positive, though. Bad habits can have the same kind of far-reaching impact. A habit like procrastination, for instance, can cause stress, increase anxiety, and lead to missed opportunities. The negative consequences of procrastination don't just affect your work, they extend into your personal life as well, creating a cycle of frustration and dissatisfaction. It's a reminder that habits, whether good or bad, are rarely contained to just one area of life. They affect the entire system in which we operate, influencing everything from our emotions to our decisions to our relationships. This is why the process of habit change is so powerful. When you decide to tackle one habit, you are effectively changing the trajectory of your life. The habit may begin as a single small action, but as you work to strengthen it and integrate it into your routine, its effects begin to spread outward, touching other aspects of your behavior and mindset. Take, for example, someone who adopts a habit of meal planning each week. At first, the focus is simply on making better food choices, but as this habit becomes ingrained, the individual may start to notice a host of other changes. They might feel more energized, experience better digestion, or find that they're sleeping more soundly. With improved energy levels, they might become more motivated to exercise, which in turn improves their overall health. Their improved physical well-being might also have a positive effect on their mood, making them more engaged in work and relationships. The ripple effect of meal planning is far-reaching, touching multiple aspects of their life in ways they hadn't anticipated. On the other hand, it's essential to be mindful of how negative habits can also spread. Small bad habits can escalate over time, and before you know it, they are impacting more areas of your life than you expected. For example, if you consistently skip workouts or eat poorly, it can start to affect your mental clarity, energy levels, and even your relationships. You may find that a lack of physical activity leads to feelings of lethargy, which then makes it harder to stay focused at work. As your energy decreases, you may start to feel stressed, and that stress can bleed into other parts of your life. A single unproductive habit can therefore trigger a cascade of negative effects, making it harder to get back on track. This is why it's crucial to approach habit change with awareness. Instead of focusing only on one area of improvement, consider the broader implications of that change. Ask yourself, how will this habit affect other aspects of my life? How will it influence my emotional state, my energy levels, or my productivity? When you look at habits through the lens of the ripple effect, it's easier to see how they can shape the trajectory of your overall well-being. To harness the power of the ripple effect, it's important to focus on small wins. Often, the most significant changes come from consistently applying small efforts. By making small positive changes, whether it's committing to 10 minutes of reading a day, taking a walk after dinner, or practicing mindfulness each morning, you begin to create a network of positive habits that support and reinforce each other. The small wins accumulate, creating momentum and a sense of accomplishment, which in turn motivates you to keep going. Similarly, the power of the ripple effect can also work through social connections. The people around you can either reinforce or hinder your habits. If you surround yourself with individuals who have habits that align with your goals, their positive behaviours will have a ripple effect on you as well. For example, if you have friends or colleagues who prioritise health and wellness, their habits might inspire you to adopt similar behaviours, like exercising regularly or eating better. Social reinforcement can make it easier to stay on track and build positive habits. In contrast, negative influences, such as spending time with people who encourage unhealthy habits or undermine your goals, can contribute to a downward spiral, reinforcing undesirable behaviours and making it more difficult to break free. Social influence is just one example of how habits, whether positive or negative, can ripple through our lives, affecting not just ourselves but those around us as well. Ultimately, the ripple effect reminds us that habits don't exist in isolation. They are part of a larger system that influences and is influenced by other behaviours. By focusing on building one good habit, you're setting off a chain reaction that can improve multiple areas of your life. Similarly, by addressing and breaking a bad habit, you have the potential to undo a network of negative behaviours, leading to significant improvements across the board. The more we understand the interconnectedness of habits, the more empowered we become to take control of our lives. Each habit is a stepping stone toward building a better future, one small action at a time. As we move forward in our exploration of habit change, we'll dive into how emotion and memory play a significant role in how habits are formed and reinforced, and how we can leverage these factors to create lasting change. Let's continue on this journey, one ripple at a time. There's a powerful principle in personal growth and habit formation known as the compound effect, a concept that illustrates how small, seemingly insignificant actions can lead to massive results when they're consistently applied over time. In many ways, the compound effect is the secret ingredient that separates people who achieve their goals from those who don't. It's not about grand gestures or drastic changes. It's about making small, positive choices every day that add up and create exponential growth. Think of compound interest in finance. The idea that money grows faster over time because you earn interest not just on your initial deposit, but also on the interest that's already accumulated. Similarly, small habits, when repeated consistently, build on themselves, growing larger and more powerful as time goes on. This is why habits matter so much. The actions you take today might not seem like they're making a big difference in the moment, but over time, those small actions compound to produce significant, sometimes life-altering results. Let's consider an example. If you wanted to improve your physical health, starting with just a 10-minute walk every day might not seem like much. After all, it's only a short-time commitment. But if you continue that walk every day for a month, 6 months, or even a year, the cumulative benefits start to add up. You might not see a dramatic difference in the first week, but over time, you'll notice improvements in your endurance, your mood, your energy levels, and even your physical appearance. What was once a small action has now led to significant positive change. And the best part? This change wasn't the result of one massive effort. It came from the simple consistency of doing a small thing every day. In this way, the compound effect works on both the positive and negative sides. Bad habits, too, compound over time but in the opposite direction. For instance, eating junk food every day or skipping workouts might not lead to immediate consequences. You might feel fine in the short term, but over time, these habits build up. Gradually, they can lead to weight gain, poor health, low energy, or diminished self-esteem. The negative effects are often delayed, making it easy to ignore the small decisions that are contributing to a less than ideal outcome. This is the essence of the compound effect. It's the subtle, almost invisible power of consistent actions, whether they're positive or negative, that shapes the outcomes we experience in life. The beauty of this principle is that it works regardless of the size of the individual actions. Whether it's reading for 10 minutes a day, saving a small amount of money every week, or taking a few moments to meditate, it's the consistency that makes the real difference. The key is to stick with it, knowing that even the smallest positive habit can have a massive payoff if you allow it to compound over time. So, why do small habits have such a big impact? The reason is that the human brain is designed to build neural connections based on repetition. Every time you engage in a behavior, the brain strengthens the neural pathways associated with that behavior. With enough repetition, the behavior becomes automatic, part of your routine. The more you repeat a behavior, the more it becomes ingrained in your brain, making it easier to continue. The repetition of small actions like brushing your teeth every morning or reading a few pages of a book every day eventually builds momentum and creates lasting change. Another reason the compound effect is so powerful is because it taps into the law of momentum. The more you do something, the easier it becomes to continue doing it. Once you establish a habit and see its positive impact, whether that's in the form of improved health, more energy, or a sense of accomplishment, you'll naturally want to continue. Your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, when you successfully complete a task, reinforcing the behavior and making it more likely that you'll stick with it. This creates a feedback loop. As you build momentum with your small habits, you're rewarded with positive feelings that encourage you to keep going. Over time, this creates a snowball effect. What started as a small, seemingly insignificant habit can turn into a powerful force that drives you toward your larger goals. But how do we harness the compound effect to create meaningful change? The key is consistency. Small habits must be repeated consistently to create the momentum that leads to long-term results. That's why it's so important to start small, by committing to a habit that you can easily stick with. When we start with habits that are too big or too ambitious, it's easy to burn out or lose motivation. But when you start small, you're more likely to build a routine that's sustainable and easy to maintain over time. For example, instead of committing to a 1-hour workout every day, start with just 10 minutes. This is a manageable goal that you can fit into your schedule without feeling overwhelmed. Once you've established the habit of exercising for 10 minutes each day, you can gradually increase the time and intensity. The key is to start where you are and build from there, knowing that every small step you take is building momentum toward a bigger goal. Another important aspect of using the compound effect to your advantage is tracking progress. Keeping track of your habits, whether through a journal, an app, or a simple checklist, helps you stay motivated and focused on your long-term goals. Tracking gives you tangible evidence of your progress, which can be incredibly rewarding and inspiring. When you see how far you've come, it reinforces the behavior and encourages you to keep going. It also helps you identify any patterns that may be sabotaging your efforts, allowing you to adjust and stay on track. The compound effect also teaches us the importance of patience. Change doesn't happen overnight. Just like you wouldn't expect to see massive results after a few days of healthy eating or exercising, you can't expect immediate results from other habits. The real change comes from sticking with it, day after day, month after month. Patience allows the small habits to build up and eventually create significant, lasting transformation. Let's also talk about focus. The compound effect thrives when you keep your attention on one thing at a time. It's easy to get distracted by new goals or habits, but spreading your energy too thin can make it harder to see results. Focusing on one small habit at a time allows you to build that habit into your routine before moving on to the next one. Each new habit becomes a building block that supports the next, and before long, you've created a powerful system that supports your overall growth and success. Ultimately, the compound effect is about the power of consistency and small actions. It's the principle that small changes, when repeated consistently, lead to big results. The habits you form today may not seem like they're making a huge difference right away, but over time, they'll compound to create meaningful change. By embracing the compound effect, you can create a life that aligns with your goals, values, and vision, one small habit at a time. As we continue exploring the science of habit formation, we'll look at the role of emotion and memory in shaping our habits and how understanding these factors can help us create habits that last. Let's keep building momentum, one small habit at a time, toward the life we want to create. The concept of the 21-day rule has become a popular notion in the world of habit formation. It suggests that if you can stick with a new behavior for 21 days, it will become a habit, a part of your routine. For years, this idea has been repeated in books, articles, and self-help advice, promising that just 3 weeks of consistency will set you on the path to a new, automatic behavior. But is it true? Can a habit really be formed in 21 days, or is there more to the story? The short answer is no, it's not that simple. While the 21-day idea is catchy and easy to follow, research has shown that forming a new habit can take much longer than 3 weeks. In fact, studies suggest that it can take anywhere from 2 months to more than 3 months for a new behavior to become automatic and ingrained in your routine. But even more importantly, the time it takes to form a habit depends on several factors, including the complexity of the habit, the individual, and the environment. In 2009, a study conducted by Dr. Philippa Lally at the University College London aimed to determine how long it truly takes to form a new habit. The researchers tracked participants over a 12-week period as they tried to establish a new behavior. The results revealed that, on average, it took people 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. However, there was variation between individuals. Some people formed habits in as little as 18 days, while others took as long as 254 days to fully integrate the new behavior into their routine. So, what does this mean for you? First and foremost, it means that the 21-day rule is overly simplistic and doesn't account for the complexities of habit formation. It's not about hitting a magical number of days and expecting the behavior to stick. It's about the process of gradual repetition and reinforcement over time. Several factors can influence how long it takes to form a habit, and understanding these factors can help you set realistic expectations for your habit-building efforts. One of the key determinants of how long it takes to form a habit is the complexity of the behavior you're trying to establish. A simple habit, like drinking a glass of water every morning, is likely to become automatic more quickly than a more complex habit, like exercising for an hour every day. The more effort, planning, and thought required to perform the behavior, the longer it may take to solidify it as a habit. For instance, if you're trying to build a habit of running each day, the behavior requires more than just physical effort. You also have to plan your time, put on the right clothes, find a route, and possibly work around other commitments in your day. This added complexity makes it more likely that it will take longer to establish the habit. On the other hand, a habit like drinking a glass of water might only require a few seconds of effort and is easier to incorporate into your daily routine, making it quicker to form. Another factor that affects how long it takes to form a habit is your motivation and willpower. If you're highly motivated and excited about the behavior you're trying to establish, you might find it easier to stick with it for the necessary period. Motivation can provide the initial drive to get started, but it's important to recognize that motivation can fluctuate over time. On days when you're feeling low energy or less enthusiastic, it can be challenging to maintain consistency. This is where the importance of routine comes in. As you continue practicing the new behavior, it becomes less reliant on motivation and more ingrained in your daily routine. In the beginning, willpower is a crucial factor, but as the behavior becomes a habit, it requires less mental effort to continue. The goal is to move from motivation and willpower to automaticity, where the habit becomes an effortless part of your day. Consistency is perhaps the most important factor when it comes to habit formation. It's not about pushing through for 21 days and then expecting the behavior to stick. It's about consistently repeating the behavior every day, even on the days when it feels difficult or inconvenient. Missing a day here and there won't derail the process entirely, but the more consistent you are, the faster the habit will take root. In the University College London study, participants who missed a day or two still managed to form habits, as long as they maintained a high level of consistency overall. The key is to stay committed to the process, even if you experience setbacks along the way. Habits don't form overnight, and they don't form perfectly. The important thing is to keep going, even when it's hard. Your environment plays a huge role in how long it takes to form a habit. A supportive environment that makes the new behavior easier to perform can accelerate the habit-building process. For example, if you're trying to eat healthier, having healthy foods readily available in your kitchen and avoiding tempting foods in your environment can make it easier to stick with your goal. On the flip side, an environment that constantly presents distractions or temptations can make it harder to establish a new habit. Support systems also play a crucial role in habit formation. Having someone to hold you accountable, whether it's a friend, a workout buddy, or an online community, can make a big difference in your ability to stick with a new behavior. Accountability provides external motivation and encouragement, especially when your internal motivation wanes, whether it's through regular check-ins or simply knowing that someone is rooting for you. Social support helps make the habit-building process smoother and more consistent. While it may be tempting to measure your progress by counting the days, it's important to remember that habit formation is not about reaching a specific milestone in time. It's about the gradual integration of the behavior into your life. Patience is essential. The 21-day myth oversimplifies the process and creates unrealistic expectations. Instead of focusing on a set time frame, focus on the consistency of your efforts and the gradual improvement you see along the way. As you work toward making a habit automatic, you may notice that the behavior starts to feel easier and the benefits begin to accumulate. Your energy levels might improve, your confidence may grow, and you may begin to feel a sense of pride in your ability to stick with it. These small victories reinforce your commitment and provide the motivation to keep going. In the next part of our exploration, we'll dive into the role of emotion in habit formation and how understanding the emotional components of habits can help you create lasting change. Let's continue this journey and explore how our emotions and memories intertwine with our habits to shape the behaviors that define our lives. We go through our days engaging in countless habits, most of them on autopilot. Whether it's the way we wake up, the choices we make during the day, or how we react to stress, many of our actions are automatic, driven by the unconscious patterns of behavior that have been developed over time. This automaticity can be incredibly efficient. It allows us to get through the day without having to think about every little task. However, it also means that we may be running on a system that we aren't fully aware of, potentially operating on habits that don't serve us. This is where mindfulness comes in. By becoming more mindful of our habits, we can take back control, consciously choosing the behaviors that align with our goals and values. Mindfulness is often described as the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It involves being fully aware of what's happening around you, inside you, and with the choices you're making rather than simply reacting on autopilot. When it comes to habits, mindfulness allows us to observe the automatic behaviors we've developed over time and make more informed decisions about whether or not they align with the person we want to be. The first step in integrating mindfulness into habit formation is becoming more aware of the habits that currently guide our lives. How often do you do things without thinking about why you're doing them or how they might affect you? When you brush your teeth, do you do it mindlessly? Or do you notice the sensations, the motion, and the intention behind the action? This level of awareness is the foundation of mindfulness. It's not just about doing things differently, but about becoming aware of how and why we do them in the first place. This awareness is crucial because many of our habits are formed unconsciously. Over time, we engage in behaviors because they provide some form of reward, or because they are simply the easiest option. However, without awareness, we may be reinforcing habits that no longer serve us, or even worse, that undermine our long-term goals. When you bring mindfulness into your life, you start to notice the subtle ways your environment, emotions, and triggers influence your behavior. The simple act of paying attention creates space between stimulus and response, allowing you to pause and choose how to act instead of reacting automatically. For example, let's consider a common habit: checking your phone first thing in the morning. It's a behaviour that many of us engage in without giving it much thought, but mindfulness can help you bring awareness to the habit. When you wake up and instinctively reach for your phone, pause for a moment and observe the impulse. Why are you reaching for your phone? Are you checking the time, your messages, or simply filling the silence with something familiar? By becoming more mindful of the habit, you might realise that you're not actually being intentional with your time. In that moment, you can choose to replace that behaviour with something more aligned with your goals, such as a few minutes of meditation, a cup of water, or reading a chapter of a book. Mindfulness is also about being aware of the emotional triggers that influence our habits. Many of our habits are deeply tied to our emotions. For example, when we're stressed or anxious, we might reach for comfort food or procrastinate to avoid difficult tasks. Mindfulness allows us to recognize these emotional triggers and observe them without judgment. By becoming aware of the emotions that drive our habits, we can break the automatic cycle and choose healthier coping mechanisms. For instance, if you find yourself reaching for snacks every time you're stressed, mindfulness allows you to pause and reflect on the feeling of stress before you act. Instead of acting on autopilot and eating something unhealthy, you can choose to take a few deep breaths, go for a walk, or do something else that helps you manage stress. By practicing mindfulness in this way, you create a new habit loop, one that's healthier and more aligned with your long-term well-being. One of the key aspects of mindfulness is non-judgmental awareness, observing your habits without criticism. When we're trying to change a habit, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-blame or guilt when we slip up. We may tell ourselves that we're weak or lacking willpower when we fail to stick to our goals. However, mindfulness teaches us to approach our habits with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment. This shift in mindset is crucial because negative emotions like guilt and shame can actually make it harder to change our behaviour. When we're kind to ourselves and treat our mistakes as opportunities for growth, we're more likely to persist in our efforts to create lasting change. Mindfulness can also help us build stronger, more intentional habits. Once we become aware of the habits that we want to form, mindfulness allows us to stay present in the moment and fully engage in the behaviour. For example, if you're trying to establish a habit of exercising regularly, mindfulness can help you stay focused on the experience of moving your body. Instead of zoning out during your workout or rushing through it to get it over with, you can focus on how your body feels during the exercise, the sensations in your muscles, and the satisfaction of taking care of yourself. This level of mindfulness turns the habit into a meaningful experience, which can help reinforce it and make it more enjoyable. Over time, mindfulness helps us build a deeper connection to our habits. When we practice mindfulness, we're not just going through the motions, we are fully engaged in the process of change. We start to notice the small victories, the positive shifts in how we feel, and the way our habits align with our deeper values and goals. This connection to our habits makes them more sustainable and more rewarding. The beauty of mindfulness is that it doesn't require any special tools or complicated techniques. It's about being present and paying attention to the things you're already doing. When it comes to habit formation, mindfulness allows you to shift from being at the mercy of your automatic behaviours to actively choosing the habits that will shape your life in the direction you want to go. In the next part of this exploration, we'll delve into how the mind and body are interconnected when it comes to habit formation, and how cultivating mindfulness can help you build lasting habits that serve you on a deeper level. Let's continue this journey of self-awareness and intentional change, one habit at a time. Our behaviours and habits don't exist in a vacuum. They're shaped, influenced, and often reinforced by the people around us. Whether we realise it or not, the social environment we're part of plays a significant role in the habits we form, the choices we make, and how we live our lives. From the behaviours modelled by family and friends to the social norms present in the workplace or community, our social circles are powerful forces that influence our actions on a daily basis. This means that if we want to change or develop new habits, it's important to understand the impact of the people around us and how we can leverage social influence to support our goals. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and much of our behaviour is driven by social cues. One of the most fundamental aspects of human psychology is the desire to belong, to be part of a group, and to conform to the norms and expectations of that group. This drive for social acceptance influences how we behave and how we form habits. In many ways, we mirror the behaviours of those around us, especially those we admire or interact with regularly. This social influence can work both in positive and negative ways, shaping everything from our eating habits to our exercise routines to the way we handle stress. Take a moment to reflect on the people in your life. How do their habits impact you? If you're surrounded by individuals who prioritize health and fitness, it's likely that you'll adopt similar habits. Whether it's going for a morning jog, choosing nutritious foods, or making time for self-care, the behaviours of your social circle can make it easier to engage in these habits yourself. On the other hand, if your closest friends or family members engage in unhealthy habits, such as smoking, overeating, or excessive drinking, it can be harder to break free from these behaviours. Our brains naturally pick up on the actions of others, especially those we spend the most time with, which is why our social environment has such a profound effect on our habits. This influence is particularly powerful because of a psychological phenomenon called social modelling or social learning. Social learning theory, developed by psychologist Albert Bandura, suggests that people learn by observing others and imitating their behaviours, attitudes, and emotional reactions. When we see someone we admire or care about engaging in a particular behaviour, we are more likely to adopt that behaviour ourselves, especially if we perceive the behaviour as beneficial or rewarding. This is why we often adopt habits from those closest to us, whether consciously or subconsciously. For example, if you regularly spend time with someone who is an avid reader, you may begin to develop a similar habit. The act of seeing someone else prioritize reading and derive enjoyment from it can spark your own interest and make the habit feel more attainable. Similarly, if you spend time with people who practice mindfulness or meditation, you may feel inspired to adopt these practices as well, simply because they are part of the social environment you've created. The social influence here is subtle but powerful. Our habits are often shaped by the behaviours of the people we surround ourselves with. However, social influence is not always positive. If you're part of a social group that engages in habits you'd rather avoid, such as unhealthy eating, excessive drinking, or procrastination, these behaviours can rub off on you. The desire to fit in and be accepted by others can make it more difficult to break free from negative habits, even if you're aware that they're not serving your well-being. Social pressure can create a strong incentive to conform, making it harder to maintain behaviours that go against the norm of your social circle. This is why it's essential to be mindful of the people you spend time with, especially if you're trying to create new, healthier habits. Surrounding yourself with individuals who have habits that align with your own goals can help reinforce those behaviours. The more you interact with people who prioritise physical health, personal growth, or mindfulness, the more likely you are to adopt those same values and integrate them into your own routine. This is not about isolating yourself from others, but about creating a supportive environment that makes it easier for you to pursue the habits you want to build. At the same time, accountability plays a significant role in leveraging social influence to help you stick to your habits. When you share your goals with others, whether it's a workout routine, a writing goal, or a commitment to healthier eating, you create external pressure to follow through. The people around you hold you accountable, providing motivation to stay on track. For instance, if you have a workout buddy, you're more likely to stick to your exercise routine because you don't want to let that person down. Similarly, when you join a group of like-minded individuals who are focused on self-improvement, you'll feel motivated to keep pushing yourself, not just for your own benefit, but also to contribute to the group dynamic. There's also something to be said for the power of positive reinforcement from your social circle. When the people around you encourage your efforts and celebrate your successes, it provides a sense of validation and motivation to continue. Whether it's a simple compliment on your progress or someone acknowledging your efforts, this reinforcement creates a positive feedback loop that makes it easier to stick with your new habits. It's easier to stay committed to a habit when the people around you are supportive, encouraging, and proud of your progress. While social influence can be a powerful force, it's important to recognize that we also have the ability to influence others. If you make an effort to embody the habits and behaviors you want to see in your social circle, you may inspire others to adopt similar habits. Your commitment to health, wellness, or personal growth can serve as a model for others, and by leading by example, you create a ripple effect that encourages those around you to make positive changes as well. The bottom line is that the people around us shape our habits in ways that we may not always consciously recognize. By becoming aware of the social influences in your life, you can make choices about who you surround yourself with and how you engage with them. Whether you're seeking support, accountability, or inspiration, the people around you have the potential to help you stay on track and create habits that align with your goals. Building a social environment that supports the habits you want to cultivate is one of the most powerful tools for long-term success. As we move forward, we'll continue exploring how our environment shapes our behavior and the role that social dynamics play in habit formation. By understanding how social influence works, we can intentionally design our environments to support the positive habits we want to build. Let's continue this journey toward lasting change, supported by the powerful social forces that shape us every day. Our habits have a profound impact on who we are and how we perceive ourselves. They shape our daily actions, our relationships, and ultimately, the way we define our identity. But how much of our identity is shaped by our habits? Is who we are truly just a reflection of what we do, or is there more to it? These are questions we often overlook as we go about our routines, but understanding the relationship between habits and identity can be a powerful tool for transformation. At the core of this relationship is the fact that our identity is often tied to the habits we form. We tend to define ourselves based on our actions. For example, if you regularly exercise, you might start to see yourself as an active person. If you read every day, you might start thinking of yourself as a reader. If you prioritize your health, you begin to define yourself as someone who values well-being. Over time, the behaviors we consistently engage in become so intertwined with our sense of self that they form the foundation of how we identify. This connection between habits and identity is crucial because it means that the habits we choose to cultivate can influence how we see ourselves. When we make small changes in our habits, those changes can begin to shift our perception of who we are. Conversely, when we engage in habits that don't align with our values or goals, it can create a disconnect between what we do and who we believe we are. For example, someone who has built a habit of eating healthy may begin to identify as a healthy eater, and this identity reinforces the habit. On the other hand, someone who struggles with unhealthy eating habits might not identify as someone who values nutrition, even though they may want to change. The key is recognizing that identity drives behavior, and behavior shapes identity. When we see ourselves as a certain type of person, we are more likely to engage in behaviors that align with that self-image. And when we engage in behaviors consistently, we strengthen our identity in that direction. Understanding this connection gives us the opportunity to make a conscious choice. We can change our habits in a way that aligns with the identity we want to build. The power of habit transformation lies in this. By shifting the way we see ourselves, we can make lasting changes in the behaviors we want to adopt. If we want to be healthier, we don't just focus on doing healthy things. We focus on becoming someone who identifies with health. If we want to be productive, we don't just work more. We cultivate the identity of a person who values productivity and efficiency. A common mistake when trying to change habits is to focus solely on the behaviour itself without considering the deeper layer of identity. For instance, someone might say, "I need to start exercising more," without thinking about the underlying belief that needs to change. They might try to force themselves to exercise, but if they don't see themselves as someone who values physical activity, the behaviour may never stick. The shift needs to happen at the identity level. I am someone who takes care of my body and prioritises exercise is a more powerful starting point. When you identify as an active person, the behaviour becomes less of a chore and more of a natural expression of who you are. This concept is central to the identity-based habit formation approach, which was popularised by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. Clear argues that the most effective way to form lasting habits is to focus on identity first. Instead of setting goals like, "I want to lose weight" or "I want to run a marathon," he suggests reframing the goal in terms of identity. "I am someone who prioritises my health," or "I am someone who enjoys running." This subtle shift changes the approach from a goal-oriented mindset to one of identity building, making the behaviour a natural extension of who you believe yourself to be. When we tie our habits to a specific identity, we shift from focusing on results to focusing on the type of person we want to become. For example, if your goal is to read more books, instead of just setting a target for the number of books you want to read, you could aim to become someone who reads regularly. This mindset focuses on the process rather than the outcome, and allows you to see the behaviour as an expression of your identity. As you read more, you reinforce the belief that you are a reader, which in turn strengthens the habit. The connection between habits and identity also works in the opposite direction. If we engage in habits that don't align with the identity we want to build, it can lead to internal conflict. For example, if someone wants to become healthier but continues to engage in unhealthy eating habits, their actions don't align with the person they want to be. This disconnect can lead to feelings of guilt, frustration, and a sense of failure. The habit is incongruent with the identity they're trying to create, making it much harder to stick to. To break this cycle, it's essential to start by redefining your identity in alignment with the habits you want to cultivate. Instead of focusing solely on changing the behaviour, start with changing the way you see yourself. For example, if you struggle with procrastination but want to be more productive, begin by identifying as someone who values efficiency and purpose. When you see yourself as a productive person, your habits will naturally follow suit. Another powerful aspect of linking habits to identity is the way it reinforces self-confidence and self-worth. When we consistently engage in habits that align with our values, we build a stronger sense of self. We reinforce the belief that we're capable of making good decisions and living in accordance with our goals. This sense of alignment between who we are and what we do fuels our motivation, making it easier to stay on track and continue developing positive habits. Creating a new identity is not an overnight process. It requires time, patience, and consistency. As you work to adopt new habits, focus on the small wins that reinforce the identity you're cultivating. Every time you stick to a new behaviour, no matter how small, you're reaffirming your new self-image. Over time, as these habits become ingrained in your routine, your identity will naturally shift to align with the person you've been working to become. In the next section of our journey, we'll explore how emotion plays a role in the habits we form and how understanding emotional triggers can help us create habits that feel natural and sustainable. Let's continue this exploration of how our habits shape our identities and how we can intentionally craft the life we want by being mindful of the habits that define us. How you begin your day can influence not only your mood and energy levels, but also the overall direction of your day. Many of us rush through our mornings, often overwhelmed by the demands of getting out the door on time, preparing breakfast, or dealing with the inevitable distractions that come with starting the day. But the power of a thoughtfully crafted morning routine cannot be overstated. A morning routine isn't just about checking off tasks or speeding through the hours before you start your workday. It's about setting the tone for everything that comes after. The morning hours are some of the most important of the day. They are when your mind is the clearest and most receptive to setting an intentional tone. A good morning routine creates a foundation of positive habits that can carry you through the rest of your day, helping you stay focused, calm, and energized. The beauty of a morning routine is that it gives you control over how you begin your day, rather than letting the chaos of the world dictate your pace and mindset. One of the primary benefits of a solid morning routine is that it promotes a sense of structure and predictability. When you have a routine in place, you know exactly what to expect when you wake up. This predictability helps reduce stress and anxiety, as you don't have to scramble to figure out what comes next. Instead of reacting to the demands of the day as they come, you are able to proactively choose how to spend your time in the morning. This sense of control fosters a feeling of accomplishment and sets a positive tone for the hours ahead. A morning routine also allows you to focus on activities that nourish your mind, body, and spirit. Whether it's a few minutes of meditation, reading, journaling, or exercise, a morning routine gives you the opportunity to engage in practices that align with your personal goals and values. These habits are small but powerful actions that, when done consistently, can have a big impact on your overall well-being. Starting your day with activities that support your physical, emotional, and mental health helps create momentum that carries you through the challenges and tasks of the day ahead. The act of intentionally dedicating time to yourself in the morning can also serve as a reminder that you are worthy of care and attention. In our busy lives, it's easy to put everyone else's needs before our own, but starting the day with time for yourself reinforces the idea that your well-being matters. This mindset can help you set better boundaries throughout the day and prioritize your health and happiness, even when other demands arise. Additionally, a morning routine can help to foster a sense of accomplishment early in the day. Completing even a small set of actions in the morning, like making your bed, drinking a glass of water, or stretching, creates a feeling of productivity right from the start. This sense of achievement can give you the mental boost you need to tackle the rest of the day with confidence. It may seem trivial, but these small wins are key to building momentum and boosting your self-esteem. Another significant benefit of a morning routine is that it helps you prioritize your most important tasks. When you take control of the first part of your day, you give yourself space to focus on what truly matters. If you've ever rushed through your morning only to feel frazzled by the time you start your workday, you know how hard it can be to stay focused or productive. A well-designed morning routine allows you to make space for activities that align with your goals, whether it's focusing on personal development, exercising, or simply enjoying a peaceful moment before the busyness of the day sets in. One of the most powerful things about morning routines is their ability to reduce decision fatigue. Every day we make countless decisions, from what to wear to what to eat, and while each decision seems small, it can add up over time. When you have a routine in place, many of those decisions are made for you, freeing up mental energy to focus on more important tasks. By automating parts of your morning, such as deciding what you'll have for breakfast or what time you'll exercise, you eliminate the need to use willpower to make those choices. This allows you to approach your day with a clear mind, ready to tackle what lies ahead. A morning routine also helps to reinforce the idea that you're capable of creating lasting change in your life. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the thought of making big changes, but when you start small with a simple routine, you begin to see the impact of consistency. You might start with just 5 minutes of stretching or journaling, but over time you'll notice how those small actions add up. By sticking to a morning routine, you build trust in yourself and your ability to follow through with commitments. One of the challenges in establishing a morning routine is ensuring that it's both sustainable and adaptable. The key is not to create a rigid routine that leaves you feeling stressed or constrained, but to design a routine that feels natural and nourishing. It's important to be flexible. Some mornings may require a quicker routine due to time constraints, while other days may allow for a longer, more leisurely start. The goal is consistency, not perfection. If you miss a day or need to adjust, don't be hard on yourself. The power of a morning routine lies in its ability to center and ground you, not in its rigidity. As you continue to cultivate your morning routine, consider experimenting with different activities to see what works best for you. Some people find that meditation or mindfulness is the most grounding way to start the day, while others might prefer physical activity like yoga or a morning walk. Others may benefit from journaling, reading, or setting intentions for the day ahead. The beauty of a morning routine is that it's highly customizable to your needs and preferences. It's about finding what supports you and helps you start the day with intention and energy. In the end, the power of a morning routine is that it provides you with the opportunity to create a positive and purposeful foundation for your day. Rather than letting external circumstances dictate how you start the day, a well-crafted routine empowers you to take control of your time and focus on what truly matters. It gives you the mental clarity, physical energy, and emotional balance needed to navigate the demands of daily life with greater ease and intention. As we continue to explore the power of habits, we'll delve into how to build a routine that not only helps you achieve your goals, but also nurtures your well-being. The morning is just the beginning, and by making it intentional, you set yourself up for a day filled with positive momentum. Let's continue this journey, one purposeful step at a time. Sleep is often treated as an afterthought in our busy, fast-paced lives. It's easy to prioritize work, social obligations, and personal projects over rest, believing that we can catch up on sleep later, or that our productivity and success depend on working longer hours. However, the truth is that sleep is not just a passive downtime activity. It's an essential process that profoundly affects every aspect of our health and well-being. The habits we form around sleep, both in terms of quantity and quality, have a direct impact on how we feel, how we perform, and how we live our lives. Understanding the science behind sleep and the importance of good sleep habits can help us improve our physical, mental, and emotional health. Sleep is not just about shutting our eyes and resting our bodies. It's a complex physiological process that plays a key role in maintaining the functions of our brain, immune system, and organs. When we sleep, our body is hard at work repairing tissue, consolidating memories, regulating hormones, and detoxifying the brain. It's during sleep that our brain processes emotions, organizes information, and forms long-term memories. The importance of sleep is profound. It's as essential as food and water for our survival. Yet, despite its importance, many of us struggle to get the right amount of quality sleep. One of the biggest challenges in establishing good sleep habits is the influence of modern technology. The constant presence of screens, smartphones, laptops, TVs, has significantly disrupted our natural sleep-wake cycles, known as the circadian rhythm. This internal clock regulates our sleep patterns based on environmental cues, primarily the cycle of light and dark. In the past, humans relied on the rising and setting of the sun to regulate their sleep schedules. But with the advent of artificial light and the constant use of digital devices, our circadian rhythm has been thrown off balance. The blue light emitted by screens inhibits the production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for signaling to our body that it's time to sleep. This delay in melatonin production can make it difficult to fall asleep at night, leading to poor sleep quality and insufficient rest. Beyond technology, other habits around sleep, such as the timing of our sleep, our pre-sleep activities, and our sleep environment, also have a significant impact on the quality of our rest. One of the most important aspects of sleep hygiene is creating a consistent sleep schedule. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day helps regulate the circadian rhythm, making it easier for the body to fall asleep and wake up naturally. Irregular sleep patterns, such as staying up late on weekends or sleeping in too long, can confuse the body's internal clock and disrupt sleep quality. By committing to a consistent sleep schedule, we can help our body develop a rhythm that promotes deeper, more restorative sleep. The environment in which we sleep also plays a crucial role in the quality of our rest. Factors such as light, noise, temperature, and comfort all influence how well we sleep. A dark, quiet, and cool room is optimal for sleep, as it encourages the body to enter the deeper stages of restorative sleep. Investing in a comfortable mattress, pillows, and bedding that support proper alignment can also make a significant difference. A clutter-free, calming environment helps signal to the brain that it's time to unwind and relax, making it easier to fall asleep. Equally important is the pre-sleep routine. Just as we have morning routines to prepare us for the day, a bedtime routine can help signal to the body that it's time to wind down and transition into rest. Engaging in relaxing activities such as reading, meditating, or practicing deep breathing exercises can help reduce stress and prepare the body for sleep. On the other hand, engaging in stimulating activities such as watching intense TV shows, working late, or checking emails can increase stress levels and make it harder to fall asleep. Caffeine and alcohol are two substances that can negatively impact our sleep quality. While caffeine is known for its stimulating effects, it can take several hours for its effects to wear off, even if you don't feel alert after consuming it. Drinking coffee or other caffeinated beverages in the afternoon or evening can interfere with the body's ability to fall asleep at night. Similarly, alcohol may initially make you feel drowsy, but it disrupts the sleep cycle, preventing you from entering the deeper stages of restorative sleep. Over time, regular consumption of alcohol before bed can lead to sleep disturbances, leaving you feeling unrested and fatigued. The relationship between sleep and stress is also incredibly important. Stressful thoughts and worries can keep the mind active, making it difficult to relax and fall asleep. Chronic stress, in particular, can lead to a state of heightened alertness, which can interfere with the body's ability to enter restful sleep. Developing healthy coping mechanisms for managing stress, such as mindfulness, exercise, or therapy, can greatly improve sleep quality. Sleep in turn helps reduce stress by allowing the body and mind to repair and recover from the demands of the day. One of the most overlooked aspects of sleep is its profound impact on mental and emotional health. Poor sleep has been linked to a variety of psychological issues, including anxiety, depression, and mood swings. Sleep deprivation can affect brain function, impairing memory, decision-making, and concentration. Chronic lack of sleep can even lead to changes in brain structure and function, particularly in areas related to emotional regulation and cognitive performance. On the other hand, getting enough quality sleep helps regulate mood, improve emotional resilience, and enhance cognitive function. When we sleep well, we're better equipped to handle the challenges of the day, think more clearly, and respond to stress in a healthier way. The impact of sleep extends beyond mental health. It also affects physical health in profound ways. During sleep, the body goes into repair mode, repairing tissues, strengthening the immune system, and regulating hormones. Sleep is critical for cardiovascular health, as it helps regulate blood pressure and reduce inflammation. Lack of sleep has been associated with an increased risk of chronic conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. Sleep also plays a role in metabolism and appetite regulation, influencing how our body processes food and maintains energy levels. Simply put, the quality and quantity of our sleep have a direct impact on our long-term health and well-being. The connection between sleep and habits is undeniable. The habits we form around sleep, how we wind down before bed, how we regulate our sleep schedule, and how we manage our environment greatly influence the quality of our rest. By adopting healthy sleep habits, we can improve not only the quantity of our sleep, but also the overall quality, which will, in turn, improve our energy, productivity, and emotional well-being. Sleep is not a luxury, it's a necessity. By prioritizing rest and building healthy sleep habits, we can enhance every aspect of our lives. As we continue to explore the science of habits, we'll delve into how emotion and motivation intertwine with our behaviors, and how understanding these factors can help us create sustainable changes in our lives. Let's continue our journey toward optimal well-being, one habit at a time. Stress is an unavoidable part of life. From work deadlines to personal challenges, we are constantly faced with situations that put pressure on our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. While stress can often be seen as a negative force, it also plays a crucial role in shaping our habits, especially when it comes to how we cope with or respond to the pressure we experience. Stress doesn't just affect us momentarily, it has the potential to influence the habits we form and the behaviours we engage in over time. Understanding how stress interacts with our habits can help us take control of the patterns we create in response to pressure, enabling us to foster healthier coping mechanisms and break free from detrimental cycles. Stress is typically experienced as a response to demands that feel overwhelming or beyond our control. It triggers a cascade of physiological changes in the body, activating the fight or flight response. This response floods the body with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare us to react quickly to a perceived threat. In small doses, stress can be motivating. It pushes us to meet deadlines, solve problems, and perform at our best. However, chronic or excessive stress can become overwhelming, leading to burnout, anxiety, and unhealthy coping strategies. When we experience stress, our brain is focused on survival. It prioritizes immediate action over long-term planning. This shift in focus can lead us to engage in habits that provide quick relief from the discomfort of stress. For example, when feeling overwhelmed or anxious, people may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as overeating, smoking, excessive drinking, or procrastination. These behaviors provide immediate relief or distraction, but they often come with long-term consequences. The more we turn to these stress-driven habits, the stronger the neural pathways associated with them become, and the more automatic they become in our responses to stress. On the flip side, stress can also create an opportunity to develop healthier habits. For example, when faced with a stressful situation, you might decide to go for a walk, meditate, or practice deep breathing to calm your mind. These positive coping mechanisms can help break the cycle of negative stress-related behaviors. Over time, as you repeatedly engage in these healthier responses, your brain begins to associate stress with positive habits, reinforcing them and making them easier to rely on in the future. In fact, the way stress influences habits is largely determined by the habit loop, the cycle of cue, behavior, and reward. When stress is the cue, the behavior we engage in, often an automatic response, is the habit we've formed to cope with the pressure. If the behavior is unhealthy, the reward we receive, whether it's the temporary relief from discomfort or the sense of distraction, reinforces the habit, making it more likely that we'll repeat it when stress arises in the future. This cycle is powerful because it reinforces automatic responses to stress, creating patterns of behavior that are difficult to break. The problem with relying on unhealthy coping strategies is that they don't actually resolve the underlying cause of the stress. They only mask it temporarily. For example, eating junk food when stressed may provide a momentary sense of comfort, but it doesn't address the source of the stress or help manage it in a healthy way. Over time, these coping mechanisms can lead to a range of negative consequences, including weight gain, poor health, and a diminished sense of well-being. As we continue to engage in these habits, they become more deeply ingrained in our behavior, and it can be harder to break free from them. The key to creating new, healthier habits in response to stress lies in awareness and intentionality. When you become aware of the automatic behaviors you rely on during times of stress, you can start to interrupt the habit loop and replace it with a positive action. For instance, if you typically reach for a sugary snack when you're anxious, you can consciously choose to replace that behavior with a more constructive habit, such as drinking water, stretching, or taking a brief walk. The more you practice this new behavior, the more it will become ingrained as your go-to response to stress. One of the most effective ways to break the cycle of stress-driven habits is to engage in mindfulness. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation or deep breathing exercises, allow you to become more aware of your stress triggers and your habitual responses. Instead of reacting automatically, mindfulness helps you create a pause between the stressor and your response. This pause gives you the opportunity to choose a healthier behavior, one that aligns with your long-term goals rather than your immediate desires for relief. Over time, mindfulness can help rewire your brain, making it easier to respond to stress with calm, thoughtful actions instead of falling into old patterns. Another strategy for using stress to build positive habits is habit stacking. When faced with stress, you can stack a new, positive habit on top of an existing one. For example, if you're already in the habit of taking a few minutes to check your email first thing in the morning, you can stack a brief mindfulness practice right after that. This way, you're using an already established habit to help you introduce a new, stress-relieving behavior into your routine. The more you integrate these small moments of mindfulness or other positive habits into your day, the more they'll become automatic, replacing the unhealthy coping mechanisms that stress has created. It's also important to recognize that not all stress is negative. In fact, eustress, or positive stress, can be a powerful motivator for growth and change. This type of stress arises when we face challenges that push us to improve or succeed, but it doesn't overwhelm us. The key to leveraging eustress is finding ways to use it as a source of motivation to build new habits. For instance, if you feel stressed about a work deadline, you could channel that stress into productive actions, such as focusing on completing the task or breaking it down into manageable steps. Positive stress can help you push through difficult moments and build resilience, but it's important to recognize when stress becomes chronic or unmanageable, and to take steps to manage it in healthy ways. Ultimately, stress doesn't just create bad habits, it can also provide an opportunity for growth and transformation. The pressure we experience in life is inevitable, but how we respond to that pressure is within our control. By becoming aware of our habitual responses to stress, we can start to create new patterns of behavior that support our well-being and long-term success. Instead of using stress as an excuse to fall into old, unhealthy habits, we can use it as a catalyst to develop positive, life-enhancing habits that will serve us in the long run. As we continue to explore the science of habit formation, we'll look at how emotion and motivation play a role in shaping our behaviors, and how we can use those insights to further develop lasting, positive habits. Let's continue on this path of understanding how stress, when managed properly, can be used to fuel our growth rather than hinder it. Our emotions are incredibly powerful forces that guide much of our decision-making, behavior, and actions. Whether it's the rush of joy from a job well done, the relief of finishing a stressful task, or the comfort found in indulging in food after a long day, emotions shape the way we live our lives. They also play a pivotal role in the formation and reinforcement of habits. In fact, emotions are often the unseen drivers behind why we engage in certain behaviors, making them an essential element to understand when it comes to building and changing habits. When we form habits, it's not just about repeating an action over and over. It's about the emotional reward we get from that action. Every time we engage in a behavior and feel good afterward, whether it's physical pleasure or a sense of accomplishment, our brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. This dopamine release signals to our brain that the behavior is rewarding and reinforces the neural pathways associated with that action, making it more likely that we'll repeat the behavior in the future. Over time, the connection between the behavior and the positive emotion becomes stronger, and the habit becomes more automatic. This emotional reinforcement is why many habits are so hard to break. For example, consider the habit of stress eating. When you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, the immediate emotional relief from eating something comforting or indulgent can be powerful. The brain associates food with that feeling of comfort, so it reinforces the habit. When stress arises in the future, the emotional craving for comfort food can trigger the automatic response to eat, creating a loop that's difficult to escape. The behavior isn't just a result of hunger, it's driven by the emotion attached to the act. Similarly, emotions can also work in the opposite direction, helping to establish positive habits. When you exercise, for example, The feeling of accomplishment and the endorphin rush create positive emotions that make it easier to stick with the habit. Even if you don't see immediate physical changes, the emotional satisfaction of completing a workout provides enough of a reward to motivate you to continue. Over time, the brain associates exercise with those positive feelings, reinforcing the behavior and making it more ingrained in your routine. The emotional component of habit formation is particularly important because it helps to explain why habits aren't always based on logic or rational thinking. We may know that certain behaviors, like eating healthier, exercising, or managing stress, are beneficial for us, but the emotional satisfaction from a different behavior, such as eating comfort food or procrastinating, often overrides our logical thinking. Emotion, not logic, often drives the action. This is why it's essential to address the emotional triggers that drive habits if we want to change them. The first step in changing habit is to recognize the emotional trigger that starts the loop. What emotion or feeling is prompting you to engage in a particular behavior? Is it stress, boredom, frustration, or loneliness? Once you identify the emotional trigger, you can begin to look for healthier ways to cope with that feeling. Instead of reaching for a snack when stressed, for example, you could replace that habit with something that provides emotional relief in a more constructive way, such as taking a walk, practicing mindfulness, or talking to a friend. The key is to find an alternative action that provides a similar emotional reward, one that serves your long-term goals instead of reinforcing unhealthy patterns. Another way emotions drive habit formation is through anticipation. Our brains are wired to seek out pleasurable experiences, and we often engage in behaviors because we anticipate the positive feelings they will bring. Whether it's the joy of eating a favorite food, the satisfaction of crossing something off a to-do list, or the relief of procrastinating on a stressful task, we're driven by the emotional payoff we expect to receive. The anticipation of this reward creates motivation to act, and over time, this cycle becomes ingrained in our routines. However, the role of emotion in habit formation isn't just about immediate gratification. Emotional responses can also shape habits in the long term. The cumulative effect of consistently positive emotions tied to a behavior can eventually shift the way we perceive that habit. For example, if you've been practicing mindfulness for a few weeks and have noticed a decrease in your stress levels, the positive emotional benefits of calmness and clarity start to outweigh the initial effort required to sit down and meditate. As a result, the habit becomes easier and more automatic, because your brain is now associating the behavior with positive emotional outcomes over time. The emotional rewards tied to habits are also a reason why failure in habit formation often occurs when there's an emotional disconnect between the behavior and the desired outcome. If the emotional payoff isn't strong enough or isn't aligned with your values, it becomes harder to stay motivated. For instance, if you try to form the habit of exercising but don't find it enjoyable or don't feel a sense of accomplishment afterward, the behavior may not stick. The emotional reinforcement isn't there to support the habit. Finding ways to increase the emotional reward tied to the behavior, whether it's by choosing an exercise you enjoy, tracking progress, or connecting it to your overall well-being, helps make the habit more sustainable. In the same way, emotions also provide an important feedback loop. If you're trying to establish a new habit and experience positive emotions, like a sense of achievement or physical energy after completing the behavior, this feedback reinforces the behavior, making it easier to keep going. Negative feedback, like feeling worse after an activity, can be just as powerful, as it will discourage repetition of the behavior. This is why it's important to choose habits that align not only with your logical goals, but also with your emotional needs. A habit that feels rewarding on an emotional level will be far easier to sustain than one that feels like a constant struggle. Ultimately, emotions are central to the process of habit formation because they guide our actions, provide rewards, and help us maintain motivation. Understanding how emotions drive our behaviors gives us the tools to change our habits by addressing the emotional triggers that lead to negative habits and by reinforcing the emotional rewards tied to positive habits. By focusing on the emotional aspects of habits, we can create lasting change, replacing automatic responses driven by negative emotions with healthier, more positive actions that align with our long-term goals. As we move forward in exploring the science of habits, we'll dive deeper into how motivation and emotion interact to reinforce behaviors, and how we can use these insights to build habits that serve our best interests. By learning to work with our emotions rather than against them, we can craft a life filled with habits that contribute to our overall well-being. Our habits are deeply intertwined with our identity. The behaviors we engage in regularly shape how we view ourselves and how others perceive us. For many people, the challenge of breaking a bad habit or forming a new one isn't just about the behavior itself. It's about changing the underlying story we tell ourselves about who we are. If you want to create lasting change in your habits, you need to change the narrative. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who struggles with self-discipline or always falls back into old patterns, you must start viewing yourself as someone capable of making positive changes and sticking to them. This shift in perspective is essential for transforming habits in a meaningful and lasting way. At the heart of this transformation is the idea of identity-based habits. It's not enough to just focus on the actions you want to take or the goals you want to achieve. Instead, you need to connect those actions to the type of person you want to become. When you identify as someone who embodies the habits you're trying to form, those behaviors become natural extensions of who you are, rather than forced actions you have to push yourself through. This is why identity is such a powerful tool in habit change. The first step in creating lasting change is to rewrite your personal narrative. If you've tried to change a habit in the past and failed, you may have developed a story about yourself that says, "I can never stick to anything," or "I've always struggled with this." These beliefs are limiting and don't reflect your true potential. To create lasting change, you need to challenge those beliefs and replace them with a narrative that supports your growth and transformation. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who has struggled with habits in the past, start seeing yourself as someone who is capable of making small, consistent changes. This shift in perspective can be incredibly powerful. When you begin to view yourself as a person who takes action toward your goals, those actions will feel less like a struggle and more like a natural expression of who you are. For example, instead of saying, "I need to start exercising more," reframe your mindset to, "I am someone who values physical health and makes time for exercise." This subtle shift in language can make a huge difference in how motivated and committed you feel to your habits. Once you've rewritten your narrative, the next step is to focus on small wins. Habits don't form overnight, and creating lasting change requires a long-term commitment. However, it's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate results. This is where small wins come in. Small wins are the little victories that add up over time and create a sense of momentum. Instead of focusing on the big, overwhelming goal, break it down into smaller, manageable tasks that you can accomplish every day. Celebrate those small wins as they come, whether it's completing a workout, eating a healthy meal, or sticking to your routine for a week. By focusing on small wins, you not only build confidence but also reinforce the new identity you're creating. Every time you successfully complete a small task that aligns with your new narrative, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who can change, grow, and stick to positive habits. These small wins over time lead to big results. The key is to remain consistent and patient, recognizing that change takes time and that the journey is just as important as the destination. Another important part of changing the narrative is embracing setbacks. Everyone encounters obstacles along the way, and setbacks are a natural part of the habit-building process. Instead of seeing a setback as a failure or reason to give up, view it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Changing the narrative involves shifting your mindset from one of perfection to one of resilience. When you slip up, it's not a sign that you're incapable of change, it's a part of the process. What matters is how you respond to that setback. Do you let it derail you, or do you use it as motivation to keep going? By embracing setbacks and learning from them, You reinforce the belief that you are someone who is committed to growth, even in the face of challenges. It's also important to align your environment with your new narrative. The people, places and things around you have a significant impact on your habits. If you want to create lasting change, you need to surround yourself with an environment that supports the new story you're telling yourself. This could mean distancing yourself from negative influences or social situations that encourage unhealthy habits, or it could mean finding a support system that helps you stay on track with your goals. Your environment should reinforce the identity you're trying to build. If you're working on building a habit of healthy eating, for example, stock your kitchen with nutritious foods and remove the temptation of junk food. If you're working on getting up earlier, create a bedtime routine that encourages restful sleep, so that waking up early feels natural. Another strategy for creating lasting change is to visualize your success. Visualization is a powerful technique used by athletes, performers, and successful individuals to reinforce positive behaviors and build confidence. Take a few moments each day to imagine yourself living out the habits you want to form. Visualize yourself completing your workout, sticking to your goals, or feeling healthy and energized. This mental rehearsal helps program your brain for success and makes it easier to step into the identity you're striving for. Lastly, make sure you're holding yourself accountable in a way that aligns with your narrative. Accountability can be a powerful motivator, but it's important that the accountability system you create is based on self-compassion rather than self-punishment. If you view yourself as someone who is growing and evolving, you can hold yourself accountable without the harsh self-judgment that often accompanies failure. Whether it's tracking your progress, journaling, or sharing your goals with a trusted friend or mentor, accountability helps keep you focused on your intentions and reminds you of the commitment you've made to yourself. Creating lasting change in your habits requires more than just willpower or motivation. It requires a fundamental shift in how you see yourself. When you change the story you tell yourself, you begin to see the world through a new lens, one that is aligned with your goals and values. By focusing on small wins, embracing setbacks, aligning your environment with your new narrative, and holding yourself accountable, you can create lasting habits that support the person you want to become. As we continue to explore the science of habits, we'll dive deeper into how to reinforce your new identity and how to overcome the challenges that arise along the way. Let's continue this journey of transformation, one step at a time, as we build the habits that define the life we want to live. As we continue to explore the fascinating science of habit formation, it becomes clear that we're just scratching the surface. The study of habits has evolved over the years, offering us new insights into the ways our behaviors shape our lives. Yet, we're on the brink of deeper understanding, with research and technology advancing rapidly. The future of habit science promises to provide even more tools, techniques and discoveries that can help us not only understand our habits better, but also actively shape and refine them. As we look ahead, it's important to consider what the future holds in terms of how we'll understand ourselves and the way we form, break and sustain habits. One of the most exciting directions in the future of habit science is the growing intersection between neuroscience and habit formation. We've already learned a lot about how our brain operates when it comes to forming and reinforcing habits. Neural pathways are strengthened through repetition, and the reward system plays a critical role in maintaining behaviors. However, as brain imaging technology improves, we're beginning to see more detailed and sophisticated pictures of how habits are embedded in the brain. We can now observe how specific brain regions are activated when we engage in habitual behaviors, how certain habits become automatic, and how the brain adapts when we try to break old patterns or form new ones. This deeper understanding of the brain's role in habit formation could lead to new methods for accelerating habit change. For instance, neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, holds great potential in helping people rewire unhealthy habits or even build entirely new ones more efficiently. Future research may uncover more targeted ways to harness neuroplasticity to promote lasting change. With advancements in brain training, neurofeedback, and even direct brain stimulation, we might one day have tools that allow us to rewire our habits in a more controlled, deliberate way. Imagine a world where breaking bad habits or forming good ones could be as simple as undergoing targeted brain training exercises. Another area of growth is the role of genetics in habit formation. While much of habit science today focuses on environmental and psychological factors, emerging research is starting to look at how our genetic makeup might influence the types of habits we form. For example, some people may have a genetic predisposition to struggle with addiction, while others may find it easier to form consistent exercise routines. Understanding the genetic factors behind habit formation could lead to more personalized approaches to habit change, tailoring strategies to individual biological makeup. In the future, we may even see genetic testing used to inform personalized habit-building programs, giving us more insight into which habits may be easier or harder for us to adopt based on our genetic predispositions. The role of artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning in habit science is another frontier. As AI technology continues to evolve, we can expect to see it play a larger role in understanding and shaping our habits. AI has already been used in fitness trackers, mental health apps, and wellness platforms to analyze user behavior and offer personalized recommendations. But the future could see AI systems capable of providing real-time insights into our habits, identifying patterns, and suggesting strategies for improvement. For instance, imagine a world where an AI coach could track your daily behaviors, learn your goals and preferences, and then offer customized feedback and actionable steps to optimize your habits. Furthermore, AI could help us understand habit loops at a more granular level. By using data from wearable devices or behavioral tracking apps, AI could track every aspect of your day, from your sleep patterns to your productivity levels to your emotional responses. This could allow for a more comprehensive understanding of how specific habits influence each other and how they interact within the broader context of your life. Over time, AI could even predict the habits that are most likely to help you achieve specific personal goals, offering you a highly personalized, scientifically grounded path to success. In addition to AI, the growth of behavioral economics is another area where the future of habit science is headed. By better understanding the psychological factors that influence our choices, such as nudge theory and decision-making biases, researchers could develop strategies to help people make better choices in real time. Imagine using behavioral science insights to design environments, policies, or products that nudge individuals toward healthier, more productive habits. This approach could be used in a variety of settings, from workplaces to schools to healthcare systems, helping people adopt and sustain positive behaviors by making small changes to their environment that make it easier to choose the right actions. As habit science continues to evolve, social networks and community influence will likely be explored in more depth. We already know that social circles and relationships have a significant impact on habit formation. However, there's growing interest in understanding how digital communities and social media networks shape our habits. Could virtual communities be used to foster positive habit building, or are they primarily reinforcing negative behaviors? Future research may provide deeper insights into how digital interactions affect our habits and whether we can harness the power of online connections to build healthy routines or foster accountability. Finally, the mind-body connection is becoming increasingly recognized as a critical factor in habit science. Habits are not just about what we do, they're also about how we feel, how our bodies respond to certain behaviors, and how we process stress, emotions, and physical sensations. The future of habit science will likely take a more holistic approach, recognizing that mental and physical well-being are deeply intertwined. By understanding how habits affect our stress levels, emotional states, and even our physical health, we can create habits that not only enhance our productivity or personal growth, but also our overall sense of well-being. In the years ahead, We may also see an increase in the use of biohacking and self-experimentation to optimize habits. With advances in technology and self-tracking devices, people will have more access to real-time data about their physical and mental states. This data, coupled with an understanding of habit formation, could allow individuals to optimize their routines based on personal feedback, fine-tuning their habits to align with their goals, energy levels, and lifestyle needs. In summary, the future of habit science holds exciting possibilities. With advancements in neuroscience, genetics, AI, and behavioral science, we are poised to gain a deeper understanding of how habits shape our lives, and how we can reshape them to better serve our well-being. As we move forward, the focus will likely shift from one-size-fits-all approaches to more personalized, data-driven strategies that help individuals create lasting, meaningful change. The science of habits is on the cusp of transforming not only how we understand ourselves, but also how we unlock our full potential in the years to come.